All right, good day, everybody. My name is Steve Przebrowski. Coming to you from San Jose, California. I've been in the fire service, and I'll talk about myself here shortly, for almost 30 years, and time flies fast. And as this is graduation time, and I know graduation time during the COVID-19 situation is a very interesting and fluid situation. It's still that time of year that when people graduate from, whether it's high school, college, maybe fire academies, other types of schools and so forth. Um, it's sort of our new normal that we have right now. And this is a challenge for all of you that are wanting to become firefighters. And the title of this presentation, 25 Reasons to Hire You as a Firefighter, is really tailored toward firefighters around the country, whether you're a career volunteer, whether you want to be a career firefighter, volunteer firefighter, maybe a combination firefighter, work for industrial fire brigade. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities nationwide and even outside the country as well, too, for one person from Canada. These suggestions that I'm going to share are just that. They're suggestions, they're considerations, they're ideas, they're thoughts. Obviously, I've got a lot of experience that I want to share with you. Not every one of these ideas may work for you in your situation, but I will say, as far as I know, whether you're trying to become a firefighter in California, Canada, New York, Florida, wherever, there's still usually a process you have to go through. This is a general presentation to help get your mindset in the right place. I'm doing a few other presentations, one on May 30th, another one on June 6th, as well as another one on June 20th. The next three will obviously be slightly different, to talk about the hiring process, talk about more about becoming a firefighter, as well as some other key points. So I encourage you to go to my website, again, code3firetraining.com, sign up for those. And even if you can't make them because you're on shift or you're working or you get sick, I'll be able to send them to you afterward as a webinar download on demand for 7 days. And like I said, I'll probably post them on YouTube afterward, as long as they come out okay and presentable. So they're good resources for you to have. And that's what I want to really share with all of you, is that I'm a resource for all of you. So as we get started here, I appreciate all of you taking the time out of your day, whether you're 1 o'clock like me out here in the Pacific time zone, 4 o'clock back east, or wherever on the Midwest Central time zone, Mountain time zone. I appreciate you taking the time on a weekend, Memorial Day weekend, just to spend some time. Over the next hour and 50 minutes or so, I'm going to try to do my best to, number one, thank you for the gift of your time, but number two, share a lot of ideas and suggestions that I think I've learned from being on all sides of the hiring process, from being a wannabe firefighter, where it took me about 4.5 years to become a firefighter, and then to getting hired as a firefighter, getting promoted as a firefighter, and then obviously now being a deputy chief. So let me just talk a little bit about me here. And part of me is not trying to talk about me, because that's not the goal. It's to inspire, hopefully, you, maybe motivate you. Because when I was in your shoes of wanting to become a firefighter, you can't do this in a vacuum. We'll talk about a little bit about networking, building relationships, and also about just learning from the good and the not so good of others. So I want to share some of that good and the not so good as well, too, because when I was in your shoes of wanting to become a firefighter, I was already looking at not just getting hired, but also 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and up to now, almost 30 years in the fire service. Did I expect to be a chief officer as a deputy chief? Yes, I did. Did I expect to be a fire chief? Yes, I thought I'd be a fire chief by now, but then I look back and it's been a great ride, and maybe I'll never become a fire chief, but that's not a bad thing, because I'll really hit on, we can make a difference at any rank that we are. I used to think that you had to be a fire chief to make positive change. Well, I've realized over the years, some of the best positive change in the fire department happens from the firefighter ranks, the engineer ranks, the company officer ranks, and even the battalion chief or lower level chief officer ranks. I mean, fire chiefs, for example, when you're one person at the top of the organizational chart, it's hard to make change and get consensus. So being a deputy chief has provided me a lot of great opportunities to be able to do stuff like this. So just a little bit more about me here. Next slide here. Been in the fire service, as I mentioned, over 28 years, and it goes quick. And I talked a little bit about graduation earlier. It just seems like yesterday I was graduating from the Chabot College Firefighter 1 Academy. I was graduating from Chabot's EMT program, where I'm still fortunately teaching through the Fire Academy. It seems like yesterday I was graduating paramedic school. Yesterday I was getting hired with my current department in Santa Clara County, California, back in '95. And then the next thing you know, getting promoted to captain and so forth. So as I look at my career, I've gone to a lot of places that I've wanted to be. And I think that's the key is you can't wait 15 years into your career or even 20 or 25 years thinking, you know what? I'd like to be a battalion chief or a captain or a fire chief. These are things you have to think about way early in your career because you may have to set yourself up experience-wise, education-wise, training-wise, and a lot of other things. So I started out as a fire explorer for the city of Alameda Fire Department, about 45 minutes north, just next to Oakland, California. Got a lot of great experience there for a year or so. I spent about a year and actually probably almost 2 years as a student firefighter with the Oakland Fire Department. Oakland is a major metropolitan fire department that back in the 90s, when I was out there as what they called a ride-along, it was a student program through Chabot College. And it was a great opportunity to be the fifth person on a fire engine, the sixth person on a truck company. And I probably saw more fire and action in the year and, like I said, 20 months or a year and 20 months, I can't count. The year, almost 2 years there than I've probably seen in 25 plus years down here. It's just, a lot of good experience that I can't discount. From there, I went on to the city of Elk Grove, which is now the Cosumnes Fire Department, just south of Sacramento. And I was hired in my first paid position as a paid call firefighter. Basically, it sounds glorious. We weren't paid by the call, it was paid by the hour. I was, get this, paid minimum wage. I think it was like $4, $4.50 an hour back in early 90s. I know it doesn't seem like a lot now, or maybe it does seem like a lot depending on what your situation is. But I was a paid call part-time EMT. And then when I became a paramedic, then of course, I think the salary doubled. It was like $7, $8 an hour. It was great, but it wasn't about the money. It was about getting experience to put on my resume. And I think that was the key, where I got to actually physically be part of a fire crew, work in an ambulance, and really hone my skills. And again, from the time I was a fire explorer to a student firefighter, paid call firefighter, I was testing full time. I mean, I was going to college. I'd already had my 4-year degree from 4-year degree from Cal State Hayward, now Cal State East Bay. And that's when I switched to Chabot College after I graduated, because I knew I wanted to become a firefighter. So I focused on Chabot in Hayward, getting my EMT, my Firefighter 1 Academy, as well as my 2-year degree. And all this time I'm taking tests because you got to start testing if you want to become a firefighter. So from there, 4.5 years in, like I mentioned, I finally got hired full-time as a firefighter engineer paramedic with my current department, Santa Clara County, California, which has been an awesome ride, going on 25 years now in October. And I wouldn't turn back for anything. So from there, I spent about 5 years as a firefighter engineer paramedic, got promoted to fire captain, spent about another 5 years as a captain, a little bit of time in the office and most of my time on a fire engine. From there, I got promoted to battalion chief, spent about 5 years as a battalion chief, most of it out in the field, about 6 months in the office. And I know I said a little bit of time in the office. For any of you that ever want to become a fire chief at some point in your career, I know most of you probably have no desire to be a fire chief. You just want to be a firefighter to fight fires, save lives, and give back. And I get it, and that's cool, and bitch and everything else. But you'll realize pretty quickly most of us don't fight fire that much. In most departments, this shouldn't be a shock if you've done your research. In most departments, 5% or less of the calls are fires. 5% or less are fires. And then the dirty secret is about 1% are actual fires. So hopefully that's not discouraging you. Hopefully you're doing your research, you've done your research, you've done your homework, you know what you're getting into, eyes wide open, that most of our calls are medical related. But again, if you want to be a fire chief or even a deputy chief or assistant chief, besides maybe having a 4-year degree, you probably want to do some office time. And it's very beneficial to work in the office because you learn so much about the department. And then I got promoted to deputy chief about 9 years ago. Spent time as a training chief for a few years, an administrative chief, the operations chief, and now I'm back in training now. So it's been a great ride. Yeah, 30 years ago, I wanted to be a fire chief. I've taken some tests to become a fire chief. I've got the qualifications, but I also look back at it. Maybe if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. And it really isn't, because, sometimes the fire chief or the department head has the most headaches, the most challenges, and everything else. But again, not to say I wouldn't take the opportunity if given to me, but it's what you make of it. But it's been a great career, but enjoy it because it goes by fast. Trust me. Okay, so that's pretty much some of the highlights of my career. Some of the other things, I've been fortunate to be the author of 3 published books, 2 firefighter career preparation books, which I'll touch on here shortly. 1 promotional preparation book. So if you get promoted in the fire service, the next step is usually after firefighter, either engineer or captain. And I've got 2 more books that I'm working on right now. Another one on promotional preparation, and then at least one more on leadership that I'm hoping to have published in the next year or so. So I'm really excited to be able to have those opportunities to give back, just like I'm doing right now. I've had a chance to have about 200 articles published in all the major fire magazines. And these are things that I encourage you to subscribe to. Even if you don't subscribe to, you can't afford them. All the major fire magazines usually have free email lists and usually great websites to stay up to date with a lot of information. Fire Engineering, Firehouse Magazine, Fire Rescue Magazine are probably the 3 biggest magazines. There's a lot of other ones. I encourage you to find those and check them out. Again, a lot of them are free. And even if you go to fireengineering.com, firehouse.com, firerescue.com, you can Google a lot of stuff like my name and many other names and get a lot of great info. Like I mentioned, besides 28 years in the fire service, I've also had a passion for instructing. And if you haven't figured out by now, you will hopefully shortly, is I tell people my passion is helping others get hired, helping people stay hired. And I mean stay hired, mean don't do stupid stuff and do the right thing and give back and all those good things to make sure you stay hired. So besides getting hired, staying hired, I also have a passion for helping people get promoted. And not just get promoted, but also stay promoted, because unfortunately some people do stupid things or do things that cause them to get demoted, and that's not a good thing. It's rare, but it does happen. So get hired, stay hired, get promoted, stay promoted, and more importantly, be the best that you can be and have a great, healthy, safe retirement that, 20, 30, 40 years may seem like a lot, but it'll be here before you know it, trust me. I've been fortunate to be a regular speaker besides teaching at Chabot College in Hayward for the last 28 years. Like I mentioned, in the fire technology program, I teach the intro to fire science class right now. I've taught the EMT program, managed the EMT program, managed the whole fire program. Now I just teach part-time because of my schedule at the fire department. I've taught in 33 states or have classes scheduled in 33 states. Most of those classes are typically leadership-related classes, officer development classes, mentoring, succession planning, as I'm fortunate to go around the country being contracted by fire departments to teach anywhere from the newest firefighters up to their fire chief or their entire department. So I really enjoy getting a chance to share my passion with others. I'm not the guy from California that tells you what to do, so I'm here to offer suggestions. That's what I'm here for. So please don't take it as, hey, everything Steve says is gospel, because trust me, it's not. It's just one person's opinion. I mentioned I'm a faculty member at Chabot College in Hayward, California, just south of Oakland. Another thing that I touched on of why I think it's beneficial for me to be able to offer this program, and because virtually all of you are looking for careers in the fire service, one of the reasons why I thought about charging or not charging for this opportunity was because of that, because I realized most of you are trying to become firefighters. And yeah, some of you probably have good paying jobs, some of you may not. And I remember what it's like to be in your shoes. That's really why I'm doing these free webinars, partly because of the shelter in place, but also a way to give back. And anyone that knows me knows I have a track record of hopefully doing a lot of things to help mentor and train others. I've been fortunate to, like I said, mentor, train, coach hundreds, if not thousands of people through students at the college, through people I've met around the country at fire departments, through conferences. I've helped people of all ranks get hired and get promoted all the way up to fire chief. So that's sort of my experience, as well as being a training chief to help build tests and so forth. So that's enough about me, but my hope is that some of this maybe rubs off on you, because when I was getting interested in a career in the fire service, taking my fire technology classes at Chabot, starting to take tests, I was reading the fire engineering magazines. I was reading the Firehouse magazines. I was reading those not just because there was good articles within, and the internet had not been created by Al Gore back in the 90s yet, so I didn't have that resource there, but the magazines, the hard copies, were the only things at one time that I had. Now, obviously, you have a lot more things at your fingertips, social media, the internet. The problem now is it's a lot easier to have fake news is a common term, but it's more, you have to check your sources. So do your homework and research. But when I was in your shoes, like I mentioned, I was not just reading the articles, but I was looking at all the authors that are published in like Fire Engineering magazine, because whether they're a fire chief, a captain, a battalion chief, or a firefighter, I was looking at their bios to say, hey, what does it take to get to be an author in Fire Engineering magazine? Hey, this person did this, they're a firefighter, they're a captain, they're a chief. I naively used to think that I had to be a fire chief in the FDNY, the Fire Department of New York, and one of the biggest departments in the United States, if not the biggest, to have credibility to write articles and teach classes. Well, I learned very quickly, You don't need to work for the big dogs. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'd be great to work for the big dogs, a lot of action, a lot of excitement, but you can work for the smallest department in the world or the biggest. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of opportunities out there to write articles, and now it's even easier to write blogs or write a lot of other things with social media and so forth. But I'm hopefully inspiring you, not just for now. You got to get hired and focus on staying hired. But as you proceed in your career and you think 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and 20 years down the road, that's again my passion. So these webinars I'm doing are based on the 2 books that I've had published, the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, as well as Reach for the Firefighter badge that I'll share at the end, that are both off my websites, and everything else. But again, I'm not here to pimp books. They're resources of information I think that's valuable. But like I said, another resource that I'm sharing with you is also, one second. Also, before I get into things, I want to share a picture what my goals are right now. My goals are to inspire you, which I'm hopefully doing as we speak. I'm here to hopefully inform you. I'm here to educate you, again, offer suggestions. I'm here to encourage you to go down rabbit holes, meaning you research a little bit about maybe your local fire departments. I bet there's some of you that haven't even taken the time to Google your local fire department. So if you live in, say, St. Louis, Missouri, have you gone to the St. Louis Fire Department website? Okay, maybe you have. Have you gone to a fire station to talk to a firefighter or a group of firefighters, a company? Okay, you've gone to one station. How about another station? How about another station? Have you gone to the next door jurisdiction, a city next door, a city maybe 2 cities away? So I'm hoping you go down a lot of rabbit holes to learn more. Obviously, I want to hopefully share my passion and obviously pay it forward with the hope that you do the same. I mean, I enjoy giving back and paying forward when I can, because I was in your shoes at one time. And guess what? We all have a shelf life. And even when I'm retired, I hope to continue to be giving back. But I also hope you're doing the same, because even when you're on the job for 1 year, you may think, God, I've been on the job 1 year. I've got another 20 years to go in my career, 30 years, 40 years. Well, guess what? You could be a senior firefighter with 1 year on the job. Why? Because let's say your department hires 10 people and you're one of those 10. Guess what's going to happen maybe a year from now or 6 months? Maybe they hire another group of 5 or 10. And guess what? You're a senior firefighter to those junior ones that just got hired. You may not have all the expertise, yet all the experience, but you're there to mentor and guide them, as I hope all of you do. Now, I share this picture of mine. This was taken about 5 years ago in Baltimore, Maryland, at one of the major conferences. Firehouse Magazine, just like Fire Engineering Magazine, Fire Engineering has what they call FDIC every April in Indianapolis. Firehouse has a conference called Firehouse Expo that they used to host in Baltimore. Now they host in Nashville, Tennessee. It's scheduled right now for October. They also do a West Coast version called Firehouse West. But this picture right here, some of you may look at this picture of me with a bunch of my friends, colleagues, mentors, people. Remember, these people I've known for years. You may look at people like this, and the guy in the Hawaiian shirt, there's a good chance some of you don't even know who that guy is. Like, who's the old guy in the Hawaiian shirt? Well, the old guy in the Hawaiian shirt is like a fire service icon. Alan V. Brunacini, was Phoenix's fire chief. He was a Phoenix firefighter for 48 years. You rarely hear anybody 48 years, especially at a big city fire department. Well, he was also fire chief for 28 of those 48 years. He retired about 13 years ago in 2007, if I remember correctly. He died tragically about 3 years ago in 2017. I had a chance to go to his memorial service and funeral because, like a lot of these individuals here in this picture, we're all friends, and we were involved with a group called the Baggers, which was a group that Bruno, as he was affectionately called, put together. The Baggers was a group, and still is a group, of about anywhere from 50 to about 80 people. About maybe 30 to 60 show up at any meeting. Usually twice a year we have get-togethers across the country to share leadership ideas. And Bruno was that fire service icon that would just start out a first day of our 2-day session of like, hey, what's going on? Steve, what do you got going on right now in Silicon Valley? What's new and exciting? What's your problem? What's your challenge? He was an awesome facilitator that would go around that room, and we'd be sharing problems, sharing issues, and more importantly, trying to collaborate and be able to solve problems that we may have at the local level, or maybe help others solve problems. Now, without going into too much discussion, Bruno was inducted into the Firehouse Magazine Hall of Fame in 2015, as you can see here, right, thankfully, before he tragically passed away. Brunacini, I want you to start learning names and faces of fire folk excuse me, fire folks, I say the fire folks. I want you to start learning names and faces of the fire service leaders. Start going to the magazines. If there's pictures in there where the bios are at, you may see the picture with the bio. Maybe you don't see the picture. When you go to the internet and you go to websites like fireengineering.com, you may see an article written with someone's picture. Start putting names to faces, not just fire chiefs, deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, but captains, firefighters, people that are known for doing good things around the country. Because eventually you'll start seeing these names pop up again, maybe in articles that you read, classes that you may see, heck, a lot of webinars you may get free of charge by the internet, by going through the internet. But anyway, some of the other people in this picture are some of the fire service icons that are out there. Behind me, Dr. Burt Clark in the white hair. He's a guy that's been in the fire service about 50 years, still trying to push things forward in the right direction. Shane Ray, the bald guy next to me in the blue shirt, another fire service legend. That's been really an advocate of fire service sprinklers around the country. And you may go, fire service sprinklers? We don't like sprinklers. They put the fires out. Yeah, they put the fires out, but guess what? They keep firefighters safe. They keep firefighters healthy. But more importantly, they help the civilians keep themselves and their property safe. Because if we're truly getting into this line of work to hopefully save lives and property, we're actually giving a crap about the people that we're hopefully signing up to serve. We take that oath of office to give back. Yeah, Shane takes a lot of bullets as a leader trying to push sprinklers. Few of the other people in the front, next to Bruno to the right, when you're looking at the screen, the guy in the suit, Tim Sendelbach, was editor for Firehouse Magazine for a while, editor for Fire Rescue Magazine for a while. Another good individual there that you see his name popping up in a lot of articles. Behind him, you'll see a good friend of mine, Dr. Brian Crandall, and then retired Battalion Chief Kevin Conant on the far right there, retired from San Jose Fire, good mentors. Again, we could talk about these individuals for days. It's not me bragging about myself. It's you starting to build relationships, even if you don't know people. Find your mentors, even if you don't know people, you may know of them. Just Google Brunacini, and you're going to find tons of articles and valuable information that is still valuable to this day, and that will be valuable 20, 30, 50 years from now throughout your career. I just hope we don't go to waste this talent that is out there. And this is just a small little portion of the talent that's out there in the world. Those are some of my goals that I hope will share. Now let's start this. We live in a world where I think certain generations are falsely accused of maybe, I don't know, maybe bad things. If you Google the term millennial, and I'm not here to bash any generation, trust me, so please don't think I'm doing that. If you Google the term millennial or whatever generational term for maybe younger folks, and we're all young, I was younger at some point, it happens. You're probably going to see words like entitlement, words like lazy. Well, I hate to say it, but that's not a generational thing. That's a society thing. I see people in their 60s, their 70s that are feeling of entitlement. So we're not here to bash any generation. For anyone that starts bashing another generation, trust me, they're talking about your generation. We need to work together and we need to collaborate. Because guess what? We're all going to be at that point if we live long enough. So the point here is, though, you want to become a firefighter, you're starting out with a clean slate, which is a good thing. And I hope you're also taking good notes as well, too. And like I said, hopefully I'll share the webinar with you, and I encourage you to hopefully use that as a reinforcing thing. But the point is, hopefully you take good notes, and at the very end, if you still have any questions, I've tried different things in the past with Q&A. So what I ask is that if you do have questions, please jot them down right now. And then at the very end, after we close things down, I'll try to save time for Q&A, because I've tried Q&A in the middle and it sort of messes up the flow of things. So please ask your questions at the end. If you think you've got a dumb question, trust me, it's probably not dumb, because if you have the question, I bet you somebody else has the same question. You're just the one that's got the courage to raise your hand. That's courage under fire. So take the time. I want to offer up some information on my websites. If you haven't had a chance, my website, code3firetraining.com, is my personal website. For those of you that are in the fire service, a lot of promotional preparation, officer development information on the free stuff link. Again, not trying to sell anything, but it says free. A lot of resources and rabbit holes you can go down. I've been very fortunate to help people around the country of all ranks that I've never even met because of what's on the website, which is great. I love traveling and I love being in other places to help teach, coach, mentor, but I can't be everywhere. So I try to share the information that I can share. And for those of you also on the bottom that are preparing to become a firefighter, I run the Chabot College Fire Technology website, chabotfire.com. And there's also a free stuff link there that's got a lot of, hundreds of articles that I've had published in all the major magazines. So links to articles, links to other resources to help you from, I hate to say cradle to grave, A to Z is probably better because I don't want to hopefully be that morbid, but there's a lot of information here on my websites that are not going anyway anytime soon that I encourage you to check out, because it hopefully leads to a lot of rabbit holes that you can hopefully learn a lot from and maybe pass on to others. Please share the information with others. That's what it's here for. So the objectives of this session, again, we could talk for hours. I can talk for hours, but I don't want to waste your time, and I'm thankful for the gift of your time, at least today, for this time frame. My objectives, at least for this short snippet, is at the end of the session, you'll be able to identify 25 reasons to hire you as a firefighter. And like I said, these things can apply to volunteer, career, any type of department, regardless of where you're from. Next objective that I have is at the end of the session, you'll be able to determine what a fire department is looking for in a firefighter. That's a common question as a college instructor or as a firefighter. And yeah, I'm a deputy chief, but I like to call myself a firefighter because that's what I am at heart, even though I drive a desk. My choice, I'm not complaining, but I enjoy being able to work as a chief officer. But I enjoy my time as a firefighter because everyone always asks me, Steve, chief, what are they looking for? I'm testing with San Francisco. I'm testing with Los Angeles. I'm testing with Chicago, Boston, Detroit, Toronto. What are they looking for? Well, there's a lot of consistent things that you'll probably see, and there's some inconsistent things, because we'll talk a little bit about the oral board process, the hiring process. I'll get more into that on some of the other sessions that I'm doing in the next month or so. But really, whether it's the fire chief making the final decision or it's the oral board making a decision on who to move forward to the next level, they're looking for a few things. This is not rocket science, but most of the time, most candidates don't figure this out. So we'll talk about that. I'll also talk about what a perfect firefighter candidate looks like. And newsflash, there is none. So I'll try to share some of those ideas as we go forward. Now, for anyone that had a chance to view my last webinar and my upcoming webinars, you may see some slight redundancy in all the sessions, and that's okay. Redundancy is not a bad thing. It's not the exact same wording. It's not the exact same message, but there's a lot of key points that I think are worth sharing in every different session. So that's why you may see some redundancy. Plus, we learn through redundancy. So you may hear me use terms like prompt for success, meaning throw someone a bone in the right direction. You may hear that every time. Just like when I'm fortunate to teach leadership classes around the country, you're going to hear me talking a lot about the same things, because I think there's value to each of those things. So, because I think there's a lot of things that we could talk, and hopefully through redundancy, you'll understand each of these topics. But before we can even get going, excuse me, let me go back there. Before we go any further there, when you want to become a firefighter, it's not just, I want to become a firefighter, knock on the firehouse door and say, hey, hire me. I want to be a firefighter. It doesn't work that way. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's a long process. It could be as short as maybe 4 or 5 months. It could be as long as a year or a couple of years, depending on the time frame. And that's, I think, the challenging part. And it's not just knocking on Station 3's door, because those firefighters at that station are probably hopefully nice people, but they really don't have a full maybe understanding of the current hiring process, because they're usually not involved with it. Nothing disrespectful meant by that. Usually a city's human resources team or division handles that. Not maybe the fire departments, but the city, because the city HR team handles police, fire, parks and rec, public works. They hire the hiring for everybody, including promotions. So I just want to quickly expose you to what to expect in the hiring process in most departments. Some departments may not use each of these, but for the most part, and you'll find these things. And again, I'll talk more about these in each of the upcoming sessions too, but for the most part, in most departments only look for candidates maybe every couple of years. So the first thing to do is locate fire service positions. Again, you may knock on Fire Station 1's door and say, hey, are you hiring firefighters? And they may say, we just did that like 3 months ago. Oh, when next? I don't know, maybe a couple of years from now. Oh, and you're dead in the water. So before the internet, it was very challenging to locate fire service positions. Now the internet makes it very easy because most city human resource websites, when you Google city of, say, Los Angeles, the fire department portion of the website will probably have some information about becoming a firefighter, hopefully. Some department websites are terrible, some are awesome. That's why you got to go down rabbit holes and see what information is out there. So the fire department portion of the website may have some hiring information, but they'll usually direct you back to the city portion, the city human resources section. Some of them allow you to put in like what's called an interest card, where you put your name in, your email address, then when they test for firefighter, they will let you know, which is a great resource. There's also services out there. One of the best is firecareers.com. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay some money, but it's money well spent, because firecareers.com and others that are out there will notify you of testing opportunities. I'm not getting paid to push them. I subscribed to them when I was becoming a firefighter 28 plus years ago. To the point now, I still subscribe, not because I'm looking. I mean, I have a great department I'm happy at, but I'm also looking for other opportunities, not necessarily for myself, but to share with others, students that I work, that I'm fortunate to have at the college, people I interact with. So you got to locate fire service positions. Next step, once you locate positions, you could also Google. You're gonna hear me say a lot, GTS, Google that shit, or Google that stuff. GTS, with the internet, you can do a lot of Googling. The job announcement for a city, when they test for firefighter, dog catcher, police officer, the job announcement has key information. You know, the title of the position, not just the salary, the benefits, but also what the duties are, the responsibilities are, what the qualifications are to apply. So review the job announcement, meet the requirements. In a lot of departments, you can't even apply until you get your EMT. That's probably the most common requirement, EMT. Some departments may require a paramedic. Some may require a college fire academy. EMT is probably the most common. You know, EMT, a college fire academy, and paramedic are probably the three most common. And this is beyond the normal stuff. I mean, usually you have to be at least 18 years old, high school diploma or GED as the bare minimum. But some departments may have some more requirements, but again, you won't know until you do some research. And that's why I start out with the internet, talk to firefighters and so forth. Meet the requirements. From there, apply. I get a lot of students at the college that ask me, hey, Chief, should I apply for, you know, the city of Richmond Fire Department? My first question is, do you meet the qualifications? They're like, yeah, they just required EMT, 18 years old, high school diploma. My next point is, what do you got to lose? And that's where it sort of gets interesting. A lot of candidates go, well, I don't know. Maybe they're not going to hire me. Why would they hire me? A lot of self-doubt comes in. What do you got to lose? You're maybe one person out of a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand, I don't know, that are applying. Maybe there's only 2 jobs. Maybe there's 5 jobs, even 10 jobs. What do you got to lose? If they offer you the job, you're going to say, no, take the darn job. You may not even get a job offer, but at least you get a chance to be exposed to the process, because most departments, when you start learning about and testing with fire departments, you're going to learn most of the departments have the same type of testing process. Most of the written tests are the same, oral interviews are the same, background investigations are the same, medical evaluations are the same. So the key is learning how to play the game. And like I'll share in other opportunities as we go through other webinars. You apply for the position, follow the instructions. Now, a lot of people may think, but that's pretty basic and elementary. It is, but you'd be amazed how many people don't follow the instructions, whether it's, you know, a application deadline of May 31st at 5 p.m. And it's amazing how some candidates will wait till June 1st, the day after. Oh, I didn't read. I mean, when you read that job announcement, you better be highlighting key things. Date of application deadline, minimum requirements. I mean, if they require you to be a paramedic and you're not a paramedic, then don't apply and waste their time. But read the fine print, because sometimes they may say, we're looking for paramedics, but then in the fine print, must be paramedic at time of appointment, which is usually your either first day of the academy or maybe the first day of post-academy on the line, which could be anywhere from 4 months to a year and a half or 2. So if you're already in paramedic school and the fine print says we do allow people in school to apply, just have to be licensed as a paramedic by your time of appointment, go for it. What's the worst they can do? So follow the instructions, fill in the blanks, don't do stupid stuff. So follow instructions. I know easier said than done. Written examination, some departments have a written examination, usually 100 question multiple choice, which 70% is passing, and don't just be happy for 70%. Usually it's math, English reading comprehension, maybe map reading, which way is up, meaning north, south, east, west. How do you get from here to there? Mechanical ability, which a lot of people struggle with. And again, I'll talk more about this in one of the upcoming webinars, but that's sort of the exposure. Don't strive for passing, strive for the 90s. Next part's the hiring process you typically see. Some departments, like in my department, we require paramedics. We hire usually EMTs and paramedics. For EMTs, we usually require that you just have your EMT, and that's about it. For the paramedics, which is a smaller applicant pool, we require a year of experience because we find out that a lot of those that just have school experience, have never worked as a paramedic on an ambulance or a fire engine, their skills are rusty. EMT skills can be rusty, but they're a lot more refreshable, I guess, than say paramedic skills. So besides a year of experience on an ambulance, which most departments don't do because there's not a lot of applicants and they're struggling to find quality applicants. So newsflash, if you want to increase your chances, as you'll hear me talk about one of the 25 reasons to become a paramedic, do it for the right reasons. Some departments have a skills assessment. Like in my department, I said we have a paramedic skills assessment. So you do the written test, you do the oral interview, but you also have a paramedic skills assessment where we give you like a patient. We give you the skill sheets in advance, like National Registry skill sheets. And we give you a situation where here's your patient, do a patient assessment or do an airway management maneuver or whatever. You'd be amazed that a lot of candidates don't pass the skills assessments. And some departments I've seen occasionally do an EMT skills assessment. Some of them even do a firefighter assessment for skills. But again, if they don't require paramedic, firefighter 1, or EMT, they can't test you on that. That's why most departments, if they don't require those things, it's just a generic test. But if they do require those things, read the fine print, because those skills assessments tend to fail a good chunk of people. So just be up in your skills. Physical ability test. A lot of departments today don't host a physical ability test. A lot of them require the candidate to have a CPAT, candidate physical ability test. If you don't know what CPAT is, Google CPAT, C-P-A-T, candidate physical ability test. A lot of states, like in California, there's 4 different locations, 2 in Northern California, 2 in Southern California, where you go on their website, before social distancing, but hopefully once this stuff flies past us in whatever fashion, they would usually host multiple tests a month where a candidate can go get their CPAT, and those are usually good for 6 months to a year, depending on the department. So usually the department may have you do that to help save them time and money. The oral interview is probably the most common thing that you'll see in most departments, and the most important because it's usually 100% of your score. Some departments, they may say a couple hundred people go to the oral interviews. Well, from there, let's say they want to hire 10 people. Well, they've interviewed a couple hundred and maybe the list is established with maybe, 60, 50, 40 people out of that 100. Yeah, that's not impossible to have a couple hundred people that start the process and maybe only have a fraction of that make the final list. Well, then if the chief's looking at hiring 10, he or she may say, you know what? I've got a list of about 60, but I want to hire 10. He may tell his or her human resources department, give me the top 30 candidates. You may say, why 30? We're hiring 10. Well, we still have some other phases we're going to talk about here shortly. So the chief may interview 30 people, knowing that to get to 10, we still got to do backgrounds, psychological evaluations, medical evaluations, and people may get hired by other departments because these people that are getting up to this level, it starts out like a pyramid. You all take the written test. From there, 70% or better. You take the oral interview. A lot of people sometimes don't show up or don't pass. Now, next thing you know, you're getting to the top, less and less candidates. So the chief's interview is there to weed out people. And you may think 30 to 10, well, usually maybe anywhere from a quarter to a third to maybe a half don't pass backgrounds, don't pass the psychological evaluations, or just get hired by other departments. Because if you're good enough to be top of the list in our department, chances are, if you're testing elsewhere, you're going to be good in the next department. You're going to be good, meaning you're on the top of Oakland's list, you're on the top of LA's list, San Francisco's list. And it's not uncommon to, give a job offer and then have someone say, hey, sorry, Sacramento's hiring me next week before you guys are. Hey, it happens. So besides the chief's interview, talked about background investigations. Like I said, I'll talk more about that in one of the next webinars. A department will give you a conditional job offer, which allows them to dig more in. A lot of times the conditional is before the background, which just means they can do more digging into your background. And then from there, medical examination, make sure you're fit for duty, psychological examination that I touched on. And not every department does every one of these things. Some departments may just do an oral interview. They may just do a bare minimum background. They probably will do a medical examination, may not be full, maybe just be a partial one. They may not do a psychological examination. Some departments may not do polygraph, what's known as a lie detector test. But I'm just trying to expose you to these things that are out there. And one word of advice, if you do some Google searching, you may see people that are selling services to beat the background investigation, beat the polygraph, beat the psychological. And you wonder, why would people be selling stuff like that? Because like I mentioned, a good chunk of people sometimes fail backgrounds, and maybe not fail backgrounds, that's maybe a bad word. They're just not recommended to go forward in the process, nothing personal. Or they may not do as well as maybe what is appropriate for a department to hire. Be careful about spending money or doing any Google searches on those services, because you may be one of those individuals that gets passed on by a number of departments because of your background or your polygraph or your psychological. I hate to say it, but that's one of the questions they're going to ask you when you usually get to a psychological or a background or a polygraph. Have you purchased or viewed or seen or heard about any products that are out there to help you beat the test? And, well, yeah, I paid 20 bucks to pay for this. You know what? It doesn't show good for your character. So like I said, we'll talk more about that in upcoming weeks. Hopefully you're not having to get to that point. Now, the good part is once you pass all that stuff, which could take you anywhere from a few months to multiple months to a half a year or longer, the department's going to put you through usually a recruit academy. Even if the department required the academy at the college, you know, very few departments require academies from a college, like a Firefighter 1 academy at a local college. Smaller departments may require that because they can't afford to put you through their own academy and they don't have time or staffing or whatever else. The majority of departments will put you through a recruit academy, sometimes even if they require it. And I found even if we require a college academy, it's beneficial to still put people through a recruit academy, because a lot of things get forgotten in that time frame from when you graduated the academy, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago to now. If you're not working as a volunteer firefighter and keeping your skills up, you forgot a lot of things, or you're rusty. So the recruit academy is anywhere from typically a month to 6 months. And then from there, you usually have a probationary period at the department, which could be anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. So the probationary period may be part of the recruit academy, may be separate from it. And then usually once you finish the probationary period, if you get good evaluations, you get to become what's known as a non-probationary firefighter or a permanent employee, where now you're allowed due process rights in most states. You know, that's a whole nother story. But when you're a recruit academy firefighter or probationary firefighter, you're sort of like Kleenex. And don't take that wrong, but I remember hearing a retired chief say, you're sort of like Kleenex, meaning you're disposable and they can let you go for any reason, as long as it's not obviously, you know, based on sex, gender, ethnicity, and all those other illegal things. So you can never let your guard down. But once you pass your probationary period, again, every state's slightly different with laws, then you become a permanent firefighter, which means you can still get fired or disciplined. It just takes a lot to make it happen. So that's pretty much the process. But a few points to ponder. Realize that every department is different. Every testing process is different. You know, Oakland is right across the bay from San Francisco. Oakland is right next to Berkeley in the city of Alameda. Each department is slightly different, and that's not wrong. That's just the way it is. Most departments call their engines, but some call them pumpers. So there's sometimes differences. Most departments call their truck companies trucks. Some call them ladder companies. They're not wrong or right. My point is, realize every department's slightly different. Every testing process is slightly different. Even every fire chief is looking for something different, meaning if I'm the fire chief today of my department and I'm hiring a candidate, I obviously know what I want to look for in candidates. Well, let's say I retire tomorrow and then the next fire chief steps in. What he or she is looking for could be slightly different or drastically different. One fire chief could be looking for people with paramedic in their background, firefighter academy in their background, strong education in their background. The next fire chief can maybe say, you know what, I don't care about education. As long as I got a high school diploma, I'm good. They may also say, you know what, I'll put them to paramedic school. I'll train them to be a paramedic and firefighter. Neither is right or wrong. It's just realize what happens in one department today could change with the next fire chief, or even change with the next city manager. Because doing your homework, you hopefully realize the fire chief, everyone's got a boss. The fire chief's boss, besides the citizens, is ultimately usually the city administrator, maybe the city council, maybe the city manager. My department's fire chief, his boss is the county executive, as well as the board of supervisors. So every department's different, but everyone's got a boss. So the point is, things could change based on what the bosses are looking for. Number two, take every test you qualify for. Even if you don't qualify for many, you may go, I don't qualify for a lot of them. Well, you know what? Take the ones you qualify for. You may live, let's say, in Cleveland, Ohio, and you go, well, you know what? I don't want to work in Columbus, Ohio, which is a few hours away, or Toledo, Ohio, a couple hours away, or Buffalo, New York, a few hours away. First of all, don't worry about that. Take every test you qualify for. You may go, well, how do I know what I qualify for? GTS, Google that stuff. Sign up for one of the testing notification services. Do your research, because then you can also see what departments are looking for. In your area, if you, like when I was testing in the San Francisco Bay Area back in the early 90s, most departments were going paramedic. Most departments were just BLS, meaning EMT at the time. Back in the early 90s, it was like I don't know what you want to call it, but every department wanted to be paramedic. And I think that's a good thing, but every department was starting to look for paramedics, and they couldn't afford to put the people through paramedic schools. So they're looking for qualified paramedics. So instead of having hundreds and thousands of applicants I was competing for when I was an EMT, that paramedic license narrowed it down to less than 100. My department, 60 of us were competing for 11 positions. 60 paramedics, all of us were qualified as medics, 11 positions. Do the math, great odds. Even today, 28 years later, those odds are still out there. You become a paramedic, those odds, you'll be testing against double digits of people. But make sure, you know, paramedic school, EMT is a semester or two. Paramedic school is potentially a year or more. It's not easy to get into, to find a school, to afford a school, but it definitely increases your competition and reduces your numbers. But what do you got to lose by taking tests? Think about it. You can always say no. And I love it when I hear people, well, I don't want to work for that department. What do you mean you don't want to work for that department? Well, I don't like them, or a friend of mine works there and says they suck. Okay, that's one person's a negative opinion. They're probably negative about everything in life. I bet you if you go to that department, you'll probably find most of the people probably like and enjoy working for that department. Plus, if you're not there, working there in a firehouse, you may not know everything. And you won't know everything until you're physically there. So don't discount a department just because of what someone says or what you read. Do your homework about what you're getting into, because there's some departments on the brink, or cities on the brink of bankruptcy, staffing reductions. I get it with all this COVID-19 stuff that we're all dealing with around the country in various forms and fashions. There will be some cuts, but there'll still be some opportunities. But take every test. Say no if you don't want to, but you'd be stupid to turn down a job. Third point to ponder, let this soak in. Why do you want to become a firefighter? And I hit on this every single time I have a chance to talk with anyone that wants to become a firefighter. If you want to become a firefighter to give back, help your community, volunteer, go somewhere else. And now, please don't hang up just yet. Hear me out. Those are all good things. Don't get me wrong. We want people that are coming on the job that want to help people, to give back, to help. Not volunteer. I mean, volunteer if it's a volunteer position. If it's a career position, obviously not. You're going to get paid for it. But yes, we want people to obviously be civil servants, know what you're getting into civil service wise. But think about it. If you use that answer in an oral interview, it's going to be a very clone, boring, blah answer. Or let's say you say, hey, I want to become a firefighter to fight fire and save lives. Think back to what I said a little while ago. Most firefighters in most departments, 5% of their calls are fires. Well, actual fires in a lot of departments are not 5%. That's what they get called for. Actual fires maybe 1%, 2%, maybe a little bit more in some departments, but even the big cities still run mostly medical calls. So if you want to fight fire, you're probably not going to get to see a lot of fire in most departments. There's a lot of areas of the country, especially out in our area, where there's a lot of expensive homes and a lot of expensive areas, that it's not uncommon for firefighters in a department that maybe has 3, 4, 5 firehouses, maybe a town of about 70 to 100,000 people, and they maybe get 5 fires a year. That's all shifts, meaning usually there's A shift on duty, B shift, or group, whatever, or platoon, whatever your department calls it. You could go months without seeing a fire on the job. Are you going to be happy doing that? Some of you may go, I just want to fight fire. Then you know what? Go to Detroit. Go to the FDNY, go to some of the big cities back east in the Midwest that still get a lot of fires, or San Francisco. But even then, they still run most of those departments 70 to 80% medical calls. It's not a bad thing. We're here to serve people. But find out why you want to become a firefighter. Also, if you want to be someone that grabs someone from the clutches of death, realize the average firefighter will never grab anyone from the clutches of death. Seriously. In my almost 30 years in the job, I've never grabbed anyone from clutches of death. Yeah, I've been in the office the last 9 years as a deputy chief, and I still go to fires, not inside on the nozzle like I'd love to, but there to help with the command process and help the command officers out. But if I'm there just to fight fire and save lives, you're going to be disappointed. Do it because you want to give back. Plus, if you say that to the oral board, they're going to say, oh my God, you haven't done your homework. Do your homework and your research. Find some other reasons that are hopefully unique. Next point to ponder, the $1 million question. What are they looking for? Well, think about this here. Let that soak in. What are they looking for? In most departments, if you think about it, let's say you're testing or you're applying against 100 people, 200 people, 1,000, 20,000 people. I mean, you go to a big city like New York, Chicago, Boston, LA, it's not uncommon to have thousands of applicants. I mean, do your homework and you look at FDNY every time they take applications every few years. I mean, 5, 10, 15,000 applications. Don't be intimidated by that. And I say that because think about it. They got 20,000 applications. Well, they're probably still going to hire a couple hundred people. Hell, they might be hiring 500 or more people. And just because they have 20,000 people, think about the weeding out process I touched on earlier. Some of those people are not going to fill out the application properly and get denied. Some of them may not even show up for the written test or even pass the written test. Some of them may not pass the physical ability test or get one taken on time. Some or show up. Some of them may get it to the oral interview. Some of them may not even show up. I hear around the country on a regular basis, it's about maybe 20 to 30% or more of no-show rates at oral interviews. Let that soak in. 20 to 30% or more no-show rates. And I've experienced that when I've been on our oral boards, is that John Doe is scheduled for 1 p.m. today from 1 to 1:30. They don't show up for whatever reason. They don't even call. Occasionally some people call and say, hey, you know what, car accident, car problem, or I got it called into work. Can I reschedule? And usually it's like, no, because we don't have any open spots, but it's not uncommon to have people no show. And then we haven't even gotten to the backgrounds or the psychs or the medicals or whatever the department does. And then that's still who starts the academy, who passes the academy. Not everyone does, passes probation. So don't let all those numbers intimidate you. But ultimately, what are we looking for in most departments? We're looking for character, positive character, good character. We're looking for people we can work with and that I can get along with, that are not going to be jerks, that are going to be good civil servants that understand customer service skills, that can play nicely in the sandbox with others. I mean, I jokingly say that, but it's so true. You know, if you think about it, if you're a jerk or got an attitude problem and now you're on the job, we don't want you creating more personnel issues. Nobody needs that. And you know, that never happens. Oh, it happens across the country. Just Google firefighter behavior or even on-duty behavior or firefighter arrest, firefighter discipline. You'll see a lot of things off-duty and on-duty that, again, departments don't need that. We need people that understand what they're getting into. So this is actually a sign that used to be in our academy by our former academy coordinator. His point was, is you've passed the background, the psych, you've done well in the oral boards will love you, the chief loved you, now you're in the academy for the next 16 weeks. His point was, is we don't test character. That was already done. That was done in your background and the other interactions through the process. We reveal it. How do we reveal it? Think about it. Now you're hired with 10 other people or 20 or 30, or you're hired by the FDNY in New York where there's 300 people that you're hired with. That's got to be amazing to try to process that 300 people in a recruit academy. I mean, that's the rare exception, but each person's different. And guess what happens when we put you in that big group environment? We usually break you up into teams. So like when we hire, say 15 people, we'll usually break them up into 5 groups of 3. These 3 are engine 1. These 3 are engine 2. These 3 are truck 1. These 3 are truck 2. These 3 are truck 4. We break you up into groups because then we're able to rotate you and basically have you do the skills. And it's sort of a chain of command type of process that helps you learn the chain of command, learn organization, span of control, and those things. But guess what happens when we put you into those environments now others? Think about it. It's also a stressful environment. And what happens when we induce stress? Not on purpose. It's not mean. It's not hazing. We don't do any of that stuff. It's just stress that naturally occurs when you're fighting a simulated building fire. That's just a simulated building fire of, all right, stop the engine. All right, pull the pre-connected hose line off, get the hose line up to the front door, charge the water. Hey, grab a ladder, get the ladder up to the second floor, grab your tools. Even with no fire, but the stress of having everyone watching you is enough to some people make them snap because they're maybe not doing it correctly, or they're trying to get the hose ready, or they're trying to tighten the nozzle. You know, weird things when people come out when people are put under stress. And that's when sometimes we get to, they did fine on the backgrounds of the psychs, the medicals, but then in the academy, we find out maybe there's behavioral issues or attitude issues because now maybe they just yelled at their instructor, or they just told a fellow classmate to shut the F up. Those things have happened in the past. It's like, whoa, what happened? They were put under stress. So all eyes are on you. Know yourself inside and out. But if you can't tolerate high stress, this may not be a good career for you. Now, fifth point to ponder. What does the best resume look like? This is the easy part. Think about that. What does the best resume look like? A lot of people, Chief, my resume doesn't have a lot of stuff on it. And I was that guy when I started out testing. When I started out testing, I had here's a blank piece of paper. When I started out testing, I didn't have a lot on my resume. I had a 4-year degree from Cal State Hayward. I was working at Long's Drugs, now CVS drugstore. I had some management experience. I was going to Chabot College. I was working on my EMT, getting ready for the academy, but I was going, man, my resume, it sucks. I got nothing. It didn't set in until after I got hired that, you know what? We don't hire resumes. Guess what? We hire people. People. Back to the other points, people with good character traits, people with good leadership traits, good leadership potential. Because the person we hired today may be the next best senior firefighter 20 years from now. But the person we hired today, or the group we hired today, hopefully there's maybe a future captain in there, a future battalion chief, future deputy chief, maybe a future fire chief, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. We need leadership in our departments. Every department does. So there is no great resume. It's not the person that has the most experience, the most education, the most volunteer hours, none of that stuff. It's you being able to sell yourself character-wise. So think about that, let that soak in as we go through. So 25 reasons to hire you as a firefighter. Some of this stuff may be no-brainer stuff, some may not be no-brainer stuff, but let's talk about some of this stuff. Think about what I previously asked. What do you think they are looking for? Well, when you look at what departments and the oral board is usually that first time where they have face time with you. In most departments, the oral board is usually about 100% of your score. Even if they require a written test, require a physical ability test, they're not usually scored, usually just pass fail. Usually most oral boards are usually most of your score, if not all of your score on the hiring list, meaning the eligibility list, the hiring list that moves forward to get hired. You may think, hey, I passed the written test with 72%. Yeah, but in some departments, you got to have 90% or higher to go to the next phase, the oral interview. Or, oh, so my score was good. Yeah, but not good enough. That oral board, which an oral board usually has a minimum of 2 members or up to usually 5 or 6. I've seen oral boards up to 7 members, but today most oral boards are 2 to 4 members. If you're testing for firefighter, usually a firefighter entry-level interview may have a firefighter or an engineer on it, but we'll usually have 1 or more captains or lieutenants. Captain, lieutenant in most departments is the first level of what is known as company officer or first line supervisor. And there also may be a battalion chief on there. But the first level interview is really just that, like I said, that first weeding out process to see who goes to the chief's interview, if the chief even does one, who goes to backgrounds. So you've got people that are usually working at a firehouse that are now evaluating you. And you may go, well, that sucks. Well, it could suck. Number one, think about an oral interview. If you have ever had one, I've had oral interviews that are as low as or minimal as 8 minutes. And I've had some oral interviews that are 30 to 45 minutes. Most departments, anywhere from say 15 to 25 minutes you have in the room with the oral board. Yeah, the oral board that's going to make your career decision based on that 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. And if they don't really have a good feel about you or they don't like you, and you may say that's unfair, that's biased, that's discriminatory. Well, most, if not every department, human resources division, goes to the oral interview panels and always gives them the spiel of don't discriminate, don't be biased, try to have an open mind and everything. So departments and cities are not stupid. They don't want to get sued. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but raters are taught don't discriminate, just try to be judging them based on the answers that come out of their mouth, not what's written on the resume. The resume, you don't get points for what's there, you get points for what comes out of your mouth. Think about that. So oral board is looking at you going, you know what, can I work with this person? Think about it. Most firefighters work shifts, 24-hour shifts, maybe a 48-hour shift like my department does. You work for CAL FIRE, the state agency in California, you typically work anywhere from 3 or 4 days. That's when there's no fires going on. Now, when there's major fires going on in the state of California and you're assigned to those, which usually happens if you're on duty, you could be out there for 21 days straight or 28 days straight. 21 to 28 days out there. Now, you're not on the fire line every day. You're usually working 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, but you can't leave. You're there in what is known as base camp, just sort of relaxing, recuperating, waiting for your next shift. You can't go off the premises. Think about that of some of your friends right now or family members. How many of them would they probably drive you batshit crazy right now as it is. Imagine being stuck with them almost like on Survivor or on a desert island for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, 84 hours, 3 weeks. Oh, some people could be miserable. So think about that. We're looking for personality. We're looking for enthusiasm. We're looking for character traits. We don't want boring people because, again, I got to look inside going, can I sit with this person at the firehouse? Can I sit with them at the kitchen table and be able to have a conversation? Are they boring? I mean, shy is okay. Hopefully you can come out of your shell. Overbearing, on the other hand, you talk all the time. Maybe that's good. I mean, that person would drive me crazy. But again, I know it's only an oral interview and sometimes it's unfair to judge people, but sometimes that's the only snapshot we get of you. So we want you to join our family. We feel you'll fit into our culture. Now, culture is an interesting word. It's sometimes considered a bad word, but I don't think it is. Big city fire departments, and when I say big city, I mean like most big cities you think of, Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis, Seattle, San Francisco, Oakland. Big city fire departments tend to have a different type of culture than, say, a smaller department that maybe has 1 station or 2 stations, or maybe a rural department out in the middle of a rural area that's got nothing around it. That's mostly volunteer firefighters that make up the department. Every department's got different cultures, and that's not wrong or right. It just is what it is, and that's why it's critical for you to do your research. You may think you want to work for the big city fire department because of, hey, that's cool and exciting. They run calls, they fight fire, they do a lot of stuff. I see them on the news all the time. You may think you want to work for that big city, but maybe you're better fit for a smaller city or maybe a county fire department. Like, I'll use an example. There's, in the city of Oakland, Alameda County is the county that Oakland is in the Bay Area, just outside San Francisco. Oakland's got almost 30 stations. Can't remember the exact number, but they're a big city fire department that still fights a lot of fire. In the middle of Oakland, and when you look at the map, is the city of Piedmont. Oakland's got, I think, 400, 500, 600 members in the department. I can't remember the exact number. Piedmont is surrounded by Oakland. They've got about 23 members on the department, 1 station, multi-million-dollar homes surrounded by Oakland. 7 people on duty. If they get any type of fire, they've got to call mutual aid from Oakland. That's not bad. That's just the way it is. Or other departments in the area. Well, Piedmont's got a different culture because, I mean, they don't fight a lot of fire. That's not bad. There's a lot of good people with it. Hell, there's good people with every department. I can say there's a lot of good people because I know a lot of people that work for that department, and they're great people. They have a heart of gold. They love their department. They love their community. They love their department. But their culture may be slightly different from the next department over. And again, that's not meant disrespectfully. That's why you need to do your homework and research. Take every test you qualify for, because again, you may think you want to work for Oakland or Los Angeles, but maybe their oral board goes, you know what, this person just maybe won't fit into our culture. Maybe, and you go, wait a second, that sucks. Well, it does, but you don't want to be unhappy either. Why take a job with somebody that you're going to be unhappy with? And you may think, how the heck could I be unhappy as I'm a firefighter, I'm getting paid, got good benefits, I get to run calls, be on a fire engine, big red. Well, again, that is true. But depending on the culture, it could be slightly different. Again, not usually drastically different, but know what you're getting into. But that's what we're looking for. I always tell people, take every test you qualify for, give your heart and soul during any and every interview. The department will find you, not the other way around, meaning You may have a lot of rejections. A wise chief told me years ago, Steve, you may get hired in the first department, or it may take you 100 departments to test for. I'm going 100 departments. And he goes, and you may have to go out of state. I mean, obviously start with your local regional area within an hour drive time of where you live. And then from there, if there's no luck, start taking tests 2 hours out, 3 hours out, maybe even out of state. What do you got to lose? I mean, at some point, if you don't give up and you have the tenacity and persistence, you will get hired. But the key is some people give up very quickly because after 5 tests or 10 tests, they're done with it. This is BS. I'm not going to get a job, so I'm giving up. Okay. My 4.5 years of testing, I took almost 50 tests. Now, a lot of those tests were lotteries, meaning lotteries. Just that. You apply for the test, but because there's hundreds, if not thousands of people, they can't interview that many. They need a lottery, maybe random lottery will get maybe 100 people out of the 5,000 to get down to maybe 100 to interview. And I was 0 for 21 on random lotteries. So much for being random on 0 for 21, but hey, it is what it is. But when I became a paramedic, obviously there was no lotteries because there was not enough candidates. But again, you got to take every test you qualify for, and we'll find you at some point as long as you don't give up. Don't downplay or think any department you're too good for, because trust me, there's good departments in every part of the country. The grass isn't always greener, but don't discount a department just because you don't think you'll like them or somebody hates them. You know what? Trust me, there's miserable people in every fire department. Try to find the people that are positive. Those are the people you need to hang around. Second reason, you understand that where the fire service is and where it's headed. Ask me 10 years ago about COVID-19 coronavirus stuff. I mean, we've had pandemics in the past of certain degrees. I mean, you look over history, there's been pandemics, flu pandemics, SARS, all these other things that have gone on in the last 15, 20 years, swine flu. We could probably figure out one every couple of years. They're usually all different. This one's probably been one of the most tragic ones for a number of reasons because of enormity and whether or not you believe the political stuff, let's not make it politics. But who would have thought 20 years ago that if you signed up to be a firefighter, I hear people say that I didn't sign up for this COVID-19, meaning you're on a fire engine. You may be providing basic life support as an EMT or ALS, advanced life support as a paramedic, running to calls. Again, remember 70 to 80% of your calls, and being exposed to people that have coronavirus or the flu or AIDS or whatever communicable disease is. That's, like it or not, that's the fire service in today's world. And in most departments, if we didn't run the medical calls, we wouldn't have the staffing levels that we have. Because again, in most departments, when the fire calls are so slow and so few, I know people think it sucks when they hear this, but this helps justify our staffing. I mean, we are first responders, but you've got to be able to look in the crystal ball that what was going on 20 years ago is not the same as today. What's going on right now may not be the same 20 years from now, 30 years from now. So you've got to be open-minded and realize that fires are probably going down. I mean, they may spike up a little bit here and there based on what goes on, based on the economy, based on your area, but fires traditionally have gone down. I know some people argue, no, they go up. Okay, you do the homework and math on that. Medical calls continue to stay constant. And we're an all-risk agency. It's not just hazmat calls, it's active shooter. Who'd have thought active shooter events 20 years ago? I mean, it is what it is. So know what you're getting into and where it's going, because again, if you're not going to fight a lot of fire and save a lot of lives, you may not be happy. I remember hearing one of our firefighters 2 years after being hired, he goes, "Chief, this sucks." And I go, "What do you mean, dude?" He goes, "We don't fight that much fire." He goes, "I've seen like a couple fires in the couple of years I've been here." I mean, seen it, meaning been on the first due engine or on the first alarm of assignment. You know, sometimes he is on the second alarm, but he doesn't get into fire, doesn't get called into action. He goes, "We don't fight that much fire." I go, "Dude, you should have done your homework and research better. This is all information you can find by talking to firefighters, researching on the internet, GTSing that stuff." I go, "Why did you get into this job? Did you get into it for the 10 days a month, the benefits, the retirement, the money, the working conditions?" "Well, yeah." "Well, then, hey, guess what? I hate to say it, but sometimes benefits can change, good or worse, excuse me. Wages can change, good or worse. If you're getting into it for the schedule, the money, the benefits, those things can and do change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So you may be miserable if that's what you're getting into, but you got to know where the fire service is going so you can roll with the times. Because I heard a friend of mine in another department, he was saying, yeah, we're trying to see if we can not run any medical calls because of the COVID-19. We didn't want to expose our firefighters. And this was back in the Midwest. I'm like going, dude, you'll risk your life to run into a burning building, knowing you may die rescuing somebody or attempting to rescue somebody, but you don't want to get exposed to COVID-19, coronavirus, because, wait a second, you took the oath of office. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm harsh here, but it's true. You took an oath of office to risk your life. Well, I don't want to get my family, contaminated or exposed, God forbid. Yeah, but to me, it's apples and apples. If you take an oath of office, you know what you're getting into, and that's ultimately service. And that service is very generic about where it may be. Third reason, you're passionate about the fire service, not just your department, but also the fire service in your community. Think about this. When you go into that next oral interview, and you may go, well, I don't have any oral interviews scheduled. Well, you know what? Google that stuff. I bet you if you're 18 years old, high school diploma or GED, you could probably find a fire department that's testing that may not require EMT, paramedic, or even any education. You may find that. You may have to drive a couple hours, but you may find that if you Google that stuff. And I encourage you to take the test. What do you got to lose? I hope you fail your first test. You may go, fail, Steve, you're mean. If you look at this in a bigger picture way, the benefit about failing is hopefully learning from your mistakes. Some of the best mistakes I've made, thankfully nothing fatal, nothing tragic, I've learned from. And I'm glad I made those mistakes because now I can hopefully not make the same mistake again, and I can come back even stronger and better and also share some good lessons. So I hope you fail a written test. I hope you fail an oral interview. You may go, God, you're mean, Steve. I'm sorry, no trophies are given out here. I want to be realistic, and I want you to be passionate about the fire service, because when you get to that oral interview, a lot of candidates will say, Steve, I'm interviewing with San Jose tomorrow, but then I'm interviewing with maybe Alameda County Fire the next day, and then next week I'm interviewing with Fresno Fire Department. What should be different in my oral interview presentation? Very little. The only thing that should change is when you're in San Jose's oral board, you better be sharing your love for the city of San Jose, the city of San Jose Fire Department, becoming a member of the San Jose, firefighters local, giving back to the community. Even if you don't live there, that's fine, but at least when you're on duty, serving the community. When you're in Fresno, applying for Fresno, you better be saying that this is a dream come true to work for the Fresno Fire Department, and sharing that you have a passion because you've done your homework, your research, you've stopped by firehouses. You know what the positive points of Fresno are, the positive points of San Jose are, the positive points of Hayward are. Insert city name here. Because you think about it, an oral interview, passing is 70%. 70 does not get you hired. 80s and realistically 90s get you hired. And people go, well, how do you do that well in an interview? It's pretty easy. You can come into an interview, if you can show some passion and enthusiasm, you're already starting out in the top 5 or 10%, because most oral interview candidates, as soon as they sit down, they may smile when they're shaking the hands. The oral board raters, again, shaking hands. I don't know how that's going to be now coming up with social distancing, but we'll find out here shortly. Maybe it's just, virtual knuckle bumps or whatever, air bumps with our elbows, or maybe just smiling face, and I don't know what. But anyway, what happens is usually after the smile is off your face, because they tell you, have a seat in the oral board, we're going to start asking you some questions. Usually people stop smiling and they lose their enthusiasm and passion. Until, of course, the last question ends and they're escorted out of the room. Thank you very much for testing with our department. Results will be in the mail. And you're like, thank you, I want to get the heck out of here. That oral board is your time to share your enthusiasm and your passion. Not too crazy, not too out of control, but also not that person that, yes, hi. My name is Steve. This would be a dream come true for me to become a firefighter for your community. I'd really want to do this, blah. Oh my God, you just lost the oral board 30 seconds into this process. They're checked out. You'll be lucky to pass the interview, but you ain't going to be in the top echelon. You want to start with a lot of passion, enthusiasm, and sharing some love, because I hear this from departments around the country that candidates in the oral boards have gone through the whole oral board and they never at once mention anything about that department or community, or that they want to work there. We know you're testing with every department. Good candidates test for multiple departments, and the first one that gives you the job offer is the one you hopefully better take. But you got to show us some love, because the oral board loves their department, I would hope. That's why they're on the oral board, because they want to be part of the future hiring of our future leaders. So share your passion. So you want to be successful in a nutshell, share your passion, share your enthusiasm. Know yourself inside and out. Not every department allows resumes. About half the departments when you're in your interview allows a resume, meaning the candidate may not even have a resume in front of them, but you still better know it. The oral board raters may not even have access to your resume or your application, meaning they don't know you at all. Some departments don't even allow the raters to see your resume or your application packet. It's just generic interview, very vanilla. We could talk all day about that one, but those things happen. And sometimes in big city fire departments for a variety of reasons. So the oral board don't know you unless you share things about you. And again, those people on the other side of the panel are looking to see, can I work with them? Can I have a good conversation with them? Are they going to drive me crazy? Are they going to be someone that's going to fit into our culture, be able to be someone that I can enjoy hanging out with, and someone that's not going to get in trouble, someone that's going to not complain at 3 in the morning when someone's calling for the 5th time that day because of, oh, my back is hurting. Hey, you know what? That customer that's calling for the 5th time that day is still a customer. Whether they're a taxpayer or not, they are a human being that you took the oath of office for to give back to and serve. That's hard to remember sometimes, but share your passion, know yourself inside and out. And that's pretty simple. Know your resume, know your application, know your head, what's in your brain, meaning your vision, your goals, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. Know what's in your heart. I'm pointing my heart if you can't see that. Yeah, you can come in there knowing yourself inside and out. There should be no trick questions they ask you. Seriously, there should be no trick questions. So passion, enthusiasm, knowing yourself inside and out, know the department inside and out, know the community inside and out. Pretty easy to do today. Come in armed. I know it takes a lot of work. You may say, well, I've got an interview with, Albuquerque next week. Then I got an interview with Dallas, Texas next week, and I don't even live there. Well, you can do a lot of internet research. Nothing says you can't call up the department and, hey, can I talk to a firefighter? Some may find a station number in the phone book, showing my age. On the internet, on the website, you may see a phone number for a station. What's to say you can't call it up? Hi, sorry to bother you. My name's Steve Browski. I'm actually applying for the fire department. I've got an interview coming up next month. Would it be possible to, since I live in 5 states away, would it be possible to maybe pick your brain for a little bit, or maybe have you point me in the direction of somebody else I should be talking to find out some more information about your department? I'd love to be, what's the worst they can do? So no, they're not going to hang up on you. But there's a lot of resourceful ways, even if you don't live in the community, that you can do your homework. But share that love and passion, because that's going to make a difference in your oral board scores. And again, that's usually 100% of your score. If you haven't thought of it by now, you got to have excellent communication skills. You may not have heard the term soft skills, but I encourage you to Google soft skills. Soft skills are a number of things. There's hard skills and soft skills. Most firefighters think, well, we got to hire people with hard skills, meaning people that can throw ladders, pull hose, don an SCBA, all that stuff, which is good and important. But soft skills are what most employers are looking for today, not just private industry, but government. One of the biggest downfalls or negatives that I'm hearing across the country, and it's not a millennial thing or whatever generation X or Y, or don't take it that way. It's that college graduates and even job applicants today are lacking soft skills. You want to rise to the top, demonstrate your soft skills, meaning I can teach most people to throw a ladder, to pull hose, and don an SCBA. Most, not everybody. Some people, for whatever reason, can never, pull a hose, throw an SCBA, or don an SCBA, throw a ladder in a certain time frame. I get it. I can't teach you to be nice. I can't teach you to not be a jerk. I can't teach you to have a great attitude. I can't teach you great character traits. Those are things that you should have learned growing up through your parents, your guardians, your friends. Back to character. Hire for character, train for skills. That's where I think a lot of people sometimes, they think, well, hire for skills. I got the Firefighter 1 Academy. I'm an EMT. I've been 5 years as a volunteer. Hey, cool stuff. But are you a jerk? Do you have a history of being an a-hole? Do you have a history of getting into fights? Do you have a history of not getting along with others, not playing nicely in the sandbox? So the key is, you may just want to be a firefighter, and that's great because we need people at all ranks that are great. Even a firefighter may need written communication skills because you're still going to have to write emails. You're still going to have to maybe do reports at some point, but you're still going to have to fill out an application. Oral skills, interview skills. Guess what? You're interviewing as a firefighter, and you got to be able to be comfortable in front of a group. Think about that. You may go, oh, I'm comfortable in front of 3 people on an oral board. Well, first day in the firehouse, here you are, you finished the recruit academy, you finished up, you're assigned to engine 1 on the B shift, and you're all happy. You put your gear on the rig the first day, the crew welcomes you in, and the first thing the captain says, hey, check your rig out, get your gear on there. At 10 o'clock today, we gotta go to the school. We've got 300 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds at the middle school that we, meaning you, Proby, have to now give a fire education spiel to. And you're like, huh? I don't have any brothers and sisters. I don't have any kids. I'm 22 years old. I'm not comfortable speaking in front of a group. Figure it out, kid, because think about it. The captain that's maybe senior and the other person, the engineer, they're not going to want to do it. So guess what, kid? You get to do it. You better be comfortable, because now that's what you're getting graded and evaluated on. And again, you're not off probation yet. So if you haven't figured out by now, more people are scared of death, and more people are scared statistically of public speaking than they are of dying. That's an interesting survey that's been done and published out there. People are scared of public speaking than death. Wow. Well, as a firefighter or of any rank, you have to get comfortable with public speaking. Again, you're not doing a lot of those, but you got to be comfortable speaking, especially in your oral interview. So if you haven't taken a speech class, take one. If you haven't joined like Toastmasters, join them. You'll learn a lot of great leadership skills as well as other skills. Interpersonal communication is one of the best classes I ever took in college, because oral is verbal communication, which is important. Written communication is obvious. Interpersonal is reading people's body language. You portraying your body language to others, not slouching as I'm trying to get myself to sit up straight right now, recognizing that. Interpersonal communication is one of the best classes that I ever took. And again, the speech class, well, I'll tell you, I used to hate speaking, but now I don't mind it. But oral communication is key, because as an interview applicant, you got to be on your game, not as a polished used car salesperson, but at least someone that can communicate comfortably in front of the group of people that you're trying to audition for their family. So think about that. The good part is there's a lot of resources out there if you take advantage of them. 5th reason, I touched on this a little bit. If you're a paramedic and you have ALS, Advanced Life Support Paramedic experience. Now, a lot of departments that require paramedic don't require ALS experience, because if they said, hey, you got to be a paramedic with a year or 2 years of experience, there'd be like very few applicants. And most departments, the goal is not to weed, well, we do weed out applicants, but when you don't have a lot to begin with, we can't weed out, the fumes, so to speak. So, but here's the thing, if you want to be a firefighter, I do encourage you to go to paramedic school. When I was starting out, my simple plan was this. I'd finished Cal State Hayward, I got my 4-year degree. Now, I don't know of any fire department that requires a 4-year degree. Why? Because it would weed out most of their applicants. And again, a 4-year degree does not make you better than anybody else. So some great skills, some great things I learned from college that do benefit me. Soft skills, communication, problem solving, decision making, analytical things, soft skills, as I've mentioned and will mention. A lot of that stuff, I learned going through college, but the 4-year degree was not going to make a difference. What was going to make a difference that I knew was getting my EMT, because more departments in the Bay Area required EMT. So my plan of action, along with a good buddy of mine, Greg Vitz, who we went to college together, the plan was, let's go to Chabot. We've already got our 4-year degrees, but that's not going to get us a job. It'll help. Let's get our EMT, because that opens up more doors. Let's get our Firefighter 1 Academy at the college done, because a lot of the departments in the Bay Area at the time were requiring a Firefighter 1 Academy and EMT. And then obviously we're testing. If those things don't work, then you know what? We're going to bite the bullet and go to paramedic school. And to get into most paramedic programs, you have to be an EMT. So that obviously takes some time. You may have to have some EMT experience, which makes sense, because if you go from EMT right to paramedic school with no EMT experience, your odds of success are probably pretty slim. It's that ladder stair step. Think about it, like any other career. So to get into a paramedic school, even if you wanted to go today, it could take you anywhere from 6 months to maybe a year and a half, because a lot of paramedic schools require obviously EMT and maybe EMT experience, maybe as little as 6 months on an ambulance. Well, you may go, well, that's easy. Well, it ain't that easy in most areas to get a job as an EMT, because like in the San Francisco Bay Area, there's, when I look at the amount of colleges and private schools that run EMT programs, usually twice a year, usually every December and every May, spring and fall, there's usually hundreds of people graduating EMT programs. And guess what? They're all competing for the same jobs with AMR ambulance or rural metro ambulance, paramedics plus, whatever the ambulance company name is. So it's hard to get that BLS experience. But if you are a paramedic, and paramedic school may take you 6 months, or it could take you a year and a half, it reduces your odds tremendously. And then if you're a paramedic and you have a firefighter academy, it really reduces your odds, because now you come to us basically saying, hey, I can do the paramedic job, because that's going to save us a lot of money. Because if we were to put a firefighter through paramedic school, knowing that that person's off the job for potentially a year or so, when it comes to overtime to backfill their position, to pay for them, that could be upwards of $100,000 depending on the jurisdiction and cost of living, because we're paying for someone to go to paramedic school, but then we're also spending the money to spend time and a half overtime to have someone staff their spot every day. That's a lot of money. That's why most departments hire paramedics versus put them through school. So it does increase your odds, but here's the thing to end this reason with. Go to paramedic school because you want to be a paramedic. Let me repeat that. Go to paramedic school, not because you want to be a firefighter. Yes, it reduces your odds, but go to paramedic school because you want to be a firefighter. Because guess what? If you go in with that attitude that it's going to reduce my odds, I'm going to be in like Flint when I get through paramedic school, you're going to be probably potentially a crappy paramedic. And when you have to do your hospital time as part of your clinical time, or your ambulance time, which is part of paramedic school, the last thing you want to do is have your ambulance time, which is usually on a private ambulance, and sometimes with someone that maybe can't get hired in the fire department, or doesn't want to work on the fire department, maybe because they can't pass the test, or maybe they don't want to work as a firefighter. Not every paramedic that works for an ambulance company wants to work as a firefighter. That's okay. You don't want to go into paramedic school thinking I'm just doing it to become a firefighter, because it's going to, I mean, imagine yourself being that customer 5 years down the road, and you're coming to my house for my chest pain, and you check the box to get, pay the fee to get the B to become a paramedic, or just squeak by at 70.1%. We don't need that. We want people that are going to treat people as you'd want to treat your loved ones. Next reason, you have extensive, diverse life, work, and community service experience. Now think about that. Don't get discouraged. You may go, God, I'm 18 years old, Steve. I'm 19, I'm 22. I don't got a lot to offer. True. There's many people around the country that get hired, volunteer or full-time, that are 18 years old, 19, 20, 21. Just like there's many people in their 20s, their 30s, and even 40s, and even 50s. Again, we're not hiring a resume. We're hiring a person that, guess what? That person that convinced that oral board that they were worth taking a chance on, regardless of age, regardless of resume, regardless of anything. But obviously, you want to set yourself up for success. So think about this. Even if you could be 18 years old, you probably had a job, meaning, well, my only job was a paper route, or I worked at McDonald's flipping French fries, and then I had a paper route. Okay, it's still employment. It's still a job. Don't worry about what you don't have, like I did when I was starting out. Worry about what you have. Sell what you do have in a positive way, instead of saying, well, I only had a paper route, and I work at McDonald's, and it's really a dead-end job to flipping fries. Spin it positively, passionately, enthusiastically. All right, my extensive work experience started out when I was 12 years old. I had, or whatever, 5 years old, as a paper route with the Oakland Tribune. I built that up into a second route with the San Francisco Chronicle. And by the age of 12, I had 5 different papers that I was delivering for. And some of you may be going, paper route, what the heck's that? Okay. Life works in strange ways. Things change. We got to roll with the times. It used to be very common to have newspapers that used to be delivered by people. And I don't mean to be, please don't take that as sarcasm or talking down or condescending. It's not meant that way. I'm trying to share some humor, but also educate people too, because you also don't want to have someone say, what's a paper route? Because if you're saying that to somebody, that shows your age, and that shows maybe your level of engagement. And that same person that's laughing at you for not having a paper route, you gave them ammunition. You don't want to give anyone ammunition. So a good point that I share is don't promote the stereotype, meaning if you are young and maybe considered to be a certain way, maybe like entitled, don't be that way. Prove them otherwise. That's how people succeed. But back to this topic here. Share positively what you had. I had, 5 paper routes by the age of 12. I then transitioned to a landscaping business. Yeah, I mowed lawns. I started out mowing my parents' lawn for whatever, $5 a week. I then got my neighbor's lawn over here, my neighbors, and by the age of 15, I had 12 different lawns I was mowing on a weekly basis after school and on weekends. That's going to show more to a fire department than someone that's maybe 35 years old that has done nothing. Think about this. You're trying to share the positives of your background, your character. What are some good positive character traits? Loyal, hardworking, ethical, motivated, inspired, dedicated, passionate. Think about those positive character traits, tie those into your selling point, because you are marketing and selling yourself. So don't feel bad that you don't have a lot of this stuff. Work on it, get something. And one of the key words in this slide is community service. You may not have a lot of employment experience, and especially now where jobs are hard to get in a lot of areas and some things, may be out of your control, like you're being laid off. I get that. But don't be negative about it. Turn those into positives. Start volunteering. Start doing something in your community, because that's what a fire department wants, is someone that understands community service. You don't have to be a volunteer firefighter, because it's hard to become a volunteer firefighter in a lot of departments. When we get volunteer applicants in our department, we have a small volunteer brigade, as we call it. It's not uncommon to get a couple hundred applications for volunteer positions. And you may go, a couple hundred volunteers. So don't think it's easy becoming a volunteer firefighter. So there's a lot of volunteer experience that doesn't require any fire background and may be easy to get, something you can start on your own. But again, you got to convince us that you understand what community service is. Reason number 7, you show who you are. You show you are someone who will leave the fire department and the fire service better than you found it. Think about that. We're making an investment on you, not just someone that we can work with, someone that's not going to get in trouble, but someone that's going to leave things better. Whether you want to just be a firefighter for 30 years, be the best damn firefighter you can be, or let's say, you know what, I want to be a captain. I want to be a firefighter for maybe 10 years, then promote to captain. Great. Or maybe at some point I want to be a fire chief. I'll hopefully do 5-10 years as a firefighter, 5-10 maybe as a captain, battalion chief, assistant deputy, and then become a fire chief. Great. The point is, when that time for you to go, retirement, resignation, but whenever that is, usually 20, 30, 40 years down the road, you can hopefully look in the mirror, yourself and others, besides saying goodbye and thank you very much, you can hopefully know in your heart that you left them better than you found them, regardless of your rank. And like I said earlier, I thought I had to be naively a fire chief to make change. Some of our firefighters and firefighters across the country have made the most positive change in their department and have been the best influence more than anybody, company officers, chief officers. So don't think it's about rank. Leadership is not about rank. So leave it better than you found it. Be able to go into your interview having those goals, those passions. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't over deliver and under promise. It's always better to don't over promise and under deliver. It's better to under promise and over deliver, but have those thoughts and goals of once you get hired of how you're going to make things better. I touched on this a lot, and I'll just touch on it again for reason number 8. You're not getting into this for the wages, benefits, or working conditions. Wages, benefits, working conditions, because they can and do change. And then you're also not getting into this for fighting fire and saving lives. Now, I wrote an article a number of years ago. If you Google, it was on Fire Rescue One, firerescue1.com. If you Google 4 reasons to not hire you as a firefighter, 4 reasons to not hire you as a firefighter, I touched on these in depth. And it was interesting because I got a crap storm. It's interesting of feedback on social media, 4 reasons not to hire you. And these were some of the reasons I shared. And I think some people just didn't understand the context. I wasn't trying to be arrogant. I was trying to be realistic. I don't like setting people up for false hope, because I've seen some of the other instructors at the college where I teach at Chabot. I hear some of them telling the students, hey, you want to be a firefighter, fight fire, save lives. Yeah, and they pump them up. It's like that football, baseball, sports mentality of get them all pumped up. And then think about that. We pump you all up to fight fire, save lives. Then guess what happens? You get to the firehouse and you're assigned to a house that runs 2 calls a day, like most firehouses across the country. And you see fire once a month, hell, once every 3 months, once a year if you're lucky. What does that do? You're all pumped up to do all this kick-ass take name stuff. And guess what? We sold you a false bill of goods because we were pumping you up. No, you're going to be helping pick up grandma from maybe 3 in the morning. You get called to grandma's house because grandpa can't assist her out of bed and she's vomited all over herself, and you're there to help get her out of bed, to clean her up, maybe even put her in the shower and help clean her back up to get ready to go back to bed, and have her husband or partner thank you very much. And you may go, I didn't sign up for that crap. No, you took an oath of office to serve your community, and serving is a very broad word. So don't get me wrong. We all, I think, love fighting fire, but when we're fighting fire, usually someone's not benefiting from it, meaning their property, maybe their lives. So do it because you want to obviously have a career of civil service. And if you don't understand that term, please Google that stuff, because we need people. Don't get me wrong. We need people that are going to run into burning buildings, because there is still a time and a place for fire departments to go into burning buildings, to put our lives at risk, to maybe risk ourselves to be able to help someone get them out of harm's way. That's what we're here for, because no one else is going to do that. So there is a time and a place for us to do that. But again, hopefully that's not the sole reason, because you're going to be disappointed. I touched on this a little bit earlier. Don't promote the stereotype. This is not a sexist comment. This is not a racist comment. This is not a generational comment. This is a generic comment. I'm a 50-year-old white male. Okay, I fit into, last time I checked, I think Generation X. There's probably other generations that you've heard of, Generation X, Generation Y, Z, baby boomers, millennials, whatever the name of the generation is. I encourage you and I challenge you to learn more about your stereotype. Maybe it's your age bracket. Maybe it's where you grew up, where you're from, what your beliefs are. Now, let's stop this for a second. I touched on earlier that when fire departments are interviewing you and hiring you and promoting you, they cannot legally discriminate. And there's all those certain things that we cannot legally discriminate based on age, sex, gender, depending on where you're at, religious preference, sexual orientation. There's all those, things that we can't legally do. Otherwise it's discrimination. And again, everything's state laws, federal laws. I'm not an attorney, so don't claim me to be one. Find out more about yourself and what you're preparing. And I say that is, don't promote the stereotype. And I shared this with my students at the college a couple of weeks ago, is that one of them goes, well, I'm 20 years old and I'm considered a millennial. I'm considered entitled and lazy and everything else. I go, then you know what? Are you? And he goes, no, I'm a very hardworking individual. I've got 3 jobs. I'm doing this. I'm busting my butt. He goes, I'm not lazy. He goes, and another stereotype of younger generations is they have zero mechanical ability, because a lot of people don't work in the trades, pounding nails or working construction, electrical work, plumbing work. I get that. Trades are not as common as they used to be in years past. Well, that's a negative stereotype. Does that mean that all people of a certain age bracket are terrible at mechanical ability or entitled? No. So when you go into that oral interview, try to not be that person that they may be thinking you are. Again, we're not here to discriminate or be biased, but think about it. You walk into that oral interview, don't tell them that, well, yes, I'm an 18-year-old man. As you can see, I'm Steve Prusbrowski, an 18-year-old male, blah, blah, blah. We can't ask you those questions. Don't give the oral boards ammunition to discriminate against you. And that's why it's one of those things, 18 years old, who cares? Who cares if you're 18, 28, 38, or 48? We don't usually care. So go in there and just sell what you have. But again, learn the stereotypes about you and what your background is, so you don't promote them. Instead, you build upon them and prove to them that, listen, you may not have a job pounding nails. Maybe you don't like construction. I get that. But you better learn about mechanical ability, construction, because if you haven't taken a firefighter written exam, most written exams that I see around the country, they have a mechanical ability component, meaning they ask you about pulleys, gears, ratios. If you turn this valve this way, what does it do to the flow of the gas or flow of the water? And you may go, why do I need to know that? Well, if you haven't done your homework, or you have done your homework and research, you realize firefighting is a blue collar job. And one of the things that we have on the fire is that we probably use the most is the toolbox. And you better be able to look at a toolbox and understand different types of wrenches, there's many different types of wrenches, tools, hammers, saws, hand tools, power tools. You don't have to have that background, but the more you can learn about it, maybe you find friends that work in the industry of construction, or your parents or your grandparents or whoever, your neighbors. Pick their brains. Find out about those things, because fire department written exams ask those questions. That usually gets the most candidates, is that, God, I got no mechanical background. Well, you can learn it. And then on the job, you're in the academy, they're going to be teaching you that stuff. They're also going to be testing you on that stuff. Last thing you ought to do is look a hammer. Seriously. I remember one of our academy coordinators years ago, one of the first things he did was he put out a 2x4 of wood, and he gave all the recruits, here's a hammer, here's some nails, just pound a nail into the 2x4. A couple of them did a great job of, and there was others that are like looking at the hammer and then almost, hurting their thumb and injuring themselves. It was almost embarrassing. And there's people that say, well, we should have hired people that had mechanical ability background. No, there's not enough candidates out there that do. And you know what? That's the skills. I'd rather hire for character, because I can teach most people to pound a nail, or what a wrench is, or how to use the wrench, or how to use the axe, or whatever else. But again, dig into this a little bit more so you're not, promoting the stereotype of whatever that is. I touched on mechanical ability knowledge. Again, most people today don't come to the table with construction or trades experience. Firefighters 20, 30, 40 years ago were mostly hired from the trades. It's hard to find people of any age bracket that actually wants to work in the trades. The trades are struggling trying to find people. But guess what? If you ever have to rent a house, own a house, rent an apartment, own a condo or whatever else, a vehicle, bicycle, you're going to have some basic mechanical ability knowledge. And the last thing you want to do is get out of the academy and have the crew that you're now assigned to for the next 6 months of your probationary period. Hey, what type of hammer is this? What type of wrench is this? Because you're already starting off the wrong foot, because you look like an idiot, versus knowing as much as you can because you've done your homework. Howstuffworks.com is a great website. Howstuffworks.com is an awesome website to give you some exposure. But find some mechanical ability knowledge. I talked about enthusiasm. Goes with passion. You can bring that enthusiasm in. Now, don't be the person that, like I said, pre-social distancing, that walks in that oral interview with that handshake. One of our captains, awesome guy, he comes in every time, he's got that nice death grip on the hand, and it's almost like my hand is doing, it's like, dude. I mean, and I'm not totally strong. I could be in better shape, but I can imagine if somebody maybe didn't have the best, muscle strength, for lack of a better term, and it's like, you could injure people, but again, social distancing, we'll find out. But if you're one of those handshakers, don't come in like that, just nice, respectful handshake, but we'll see where that goes. But the enthusiasm is a key from the time you walk in that interview to the time you leave. Also, the time you interact with anyone in the fire department, when you're visiting a firehouse, when you're stopping by the administrative offices, for whatever it is. Enthusiasm, passion, and again, knowing yourself. Number 12, you have a positive track record of dependability. There's a phrase that is out there. Gordon Graham, a retired California Highway Patrol, who does a lot of leadership presentations around the country. Google Gordon Graham. Gordy, as he's called, is a hilarious guy. If you see some of his YouTube speeches, I mean, he has me in stitches, but he has some real life, down to earth leadership stuff that all ranks can benefit from. But one of his phrases is, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Think about that. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. His point is that if you want to know when you hire someone or promote someone how they're going to probably be, look at their background, look at their psych, look at their track record of dependability, their arrest record or lack thereof. Now, I know people change. I get that. People can change, do change. I believe second chances are awesome. But as they also say, it's tough to teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, I'm, like I said, 53 years old, and there's days where it's like, change is tough, but I try to be open and positive. So I'm not one of those old get off my lawn type of guys. I try not to be that way, but it's hard. The point is, everything you've done to this point, we've all made mistakes. We all have skeletons in our closet. I get it. None of us are perfect. I can't go in my backyard or walk in my pool or walk on the top of my pool without falling in it. I'm not perfect. The point is, understand the mistakes you've made, own up to your mistakes, and more importantly, try to not do the same mistakes twice and prove them wrong. So have a track record of dependability. You may say, well, I got arrested for DUI last year, so I'm screwed. Well, in a lot of departments, you may be screwed. But again, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of fire departments around the country, volunteer, career. There's a department out there for you somewhere if you keep trying. A lot of them may not want to hire you with a DUI in the last couple of years. Some departments say if you had a DUI like in the last 3 years, maybe the last 5 years. Some don't even care because they're so desperate. Seriously, some departments are so desperate, they don't care. Probably wouldn't hire if it was last week, but yeah, I just got out of the tank, the drunk tank, last night, and here, hire me now. Focus on your alcohol problem, and then we'll deal with your future. But track record dependability is key. It's not what you've done, it's what you've done to recover from your mistakes. This is something I get asked a lot when I work with people that want to get promoted in the fire service. Like someone's a firefighter and they go, I want to become a captain, or a battalion chief wants to become a fire chief. what do they always ask, what's going to be on the promotional exam? And I go, just don't prepare for the test. Meaning, if you think about what your test is as an oral board, entry-level candidate, as an entry-level candidate, I already hit on the phases. You may get a written test, physical ability test, oral interview, a background. Don't focus on the test. Focus on the position. How do you prepare for the position to be a firefighter? Well, get some college education that teaches you how to become a firefighter, maybe an academy, maybe some classes on fire behavior, building construction. They're not required by most departments, but they're going to help prepare you. Because if you prepare for the position, think about it. Prepare for the position. There should be no curveballs during the testing process. I went through a college firefighter 1 academy at Chabot College about 3 years before my department hired me. My department did not require the academy, but I'm glad I went through the academy because it was the same instruction that I got on the job. It was probably even tougher at some point. But the nice part was when my department hired me, even though it wasn't required, I had already used the same textbook and already done the same skills, give or take slightly different. It made it a lot easier. Some of my classmates who I got hired with had never been through a college academy and never even taken any fire classes at the college, any college. They were struggling. I mean, most of them all passed, but some of them were struggling because it's the first time they're trying to throw a ladder or pull a hose. It was a refresher for me. That's the benefit of going through a college firefighter 1 program or regional 1, or if you have one in your area, because you're getting a flavor of the job. It's like, think about it. How many people go from high school sports to the pros? LeBron James went from high school basketball to the pros. Yeah, but how many other NBA players have done that? Well, have done that and have stayed in the NBA for as long as he's done and gone to his echelon. Whether you love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. It's rare that someone goes right from high school sports to the big leagues. Most professional athletes have done time playing either college ball or, like in baseball, college maybe and minor leagues, A ball, double A, triple A, football, college football, basketball, maybe in the D leagues, the G leagues, whatever they call them, as well as college ball. That's most athletes. And even many of those that have done that still don't stay in the pros that long. So even if a department doesn't require an academy or any fire education, which again, most don't, by at least having the knowledge, it's going to make you better, not just at the testing process, but when you get hired and you go through the recruit academy and the probationary period until you get off. Now I'll use an example. In many departments, when they hire you during their 12, 16, 18-week recruit academy, one of the topics is building construction. In some departments, building construction, they may give you 4 hours of building construction, maybe 8 hours at the most, maybe 2 days at the most, 16 hours, 2 8-hour days. You take a college semester class at most colleges semester classes are about 50 to 60 hours. So do the math. You take a semester-long class in building construction, 50 to 60 hours. You've learned everything there is about building construction for the fire service. Now your fire department hires you. Your department may only give you 3 hours of building construction, 3 hours, and now that's all they're going to give you. You're not going to probably get a lot of refresher training unless you have good captains or good battalion chiefs that you work with, or good senior firefighters that are going to teach you the ropes. Or you seek out the education on your own by going back to college, or maybe taking classes, going to conferences, reading articles, reading books. You're going to learn more through a college degree program in fire science or fire technology than you will in the department. Because you think about it, 50 hours of building instruction, 50 hours of firefighter safety, 50 hours of fire prevention, 50 hours of fire behavior, 50 hours of whatever, wildland firefighting. Each of those blocks are probably more than your employer and your department will ever give you, because if a department was going to give you 50 hours of any one of those topics, it'd be a year-long recruit academy, which is unheard of. When a department hires you, they've already got vacancies, meaning they're already behind the 8 ball. They want to get you into the firehouse as soon as possible. So do yourself a favor, and more importantly, the people that you're going to be serving and working with, by having some of that education. It doesn't guarantee you a job, it just makes you understand the position better. Number 14, you demonstrated leadership ability. Again, you could be 19 years old. Leadership is not about rank, it's not about age, because I know many people that are in their 40s and 50s that have demonstrated zero leadership, even sometimes in promoted leadership positions. Leadership is about you showing that track record. I mean, maybe at 3 years old, maybe at 10 years old, and maybe you weren't the wonder super kid at 3, I get that. Maybe it was 12 years old in high school or junior high school, you did this. On Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of America, maybe something local within your community, maybe something regional or local within your school, I don't know. Demonstrated leadership ability. Again, You may not want to ever be a company officer or a chief officer. That's fine. We need good firefighters that have great leadership ability, because you may be that senior firefighter that's going to be mentoring, training, paying it forward. Next reason, you have a demonstrated ability to play nicely with others in the sandbox, as I hit on beforehand. If you haven't figured it out by now, a lot of the theme gets back to what are we looking for in firefighters? It all comes back to character traits, because it's not uncommon during interviews to ask questions such as, what are your greatest strengths? Give us 3 greatest strengths. Give us your greatest weakness, and what are you doing about that weakness? Tell us about yourself. Give us an example where you've demonstrated leadership maybe in your past. Well, again, if you know yourself inside and out, like I suggested earlier, you know every job you've held, you never know every school you've gone to, you know your resume, your application, your brain, your heart. You can share experiences from each of your schools you've attended, each of your jobs you've held, your volunteer experiences. But we want people to play nicely with each other in the sandbox. Otherwise, we have a personnel issue. We don't need personnel issues. You know, and sadly, Google firefighter behavior, and you see firefighters on duty around the country, you know, behaving badly, as they say, and it takes away from what we're here for, to serve the community. And it gives us a public relations black eye as well. Reason 16, you don't annoy the oral board or anyone else you encounter. Let me hit that. It's that time to sell yourself. Annoying, you all have those friends, family members that you know, we've talked about, that annoy the crap out of you. Try not to be that person. You don't ever be that person unless it's for the right reason. So don't take it personal, but none of us are going to be loved by everybody. There's always people that will like us, and sometimes friends come and go. Family members sometimes come and go based on certain things. But if I got to work with you for a third of my life for the next 20, 30 years, try your best to not annoy people. So hopefully you understand your annoying behaviors, or twitches, as they say. And hopefully you have friends or family members that have shared those with you, so you don't do that to anybody you encounter in the process. Occasionally, some departments will look for bilingual ability. Now, it's rare, but if you look at how diverse and inclusive the United States in general is getting, I mean, California, for example, I don't know the exact statistic, but you look at California in general of how diverse our state has become, it's over 50%, I mean, less than 50% white. So multiple languages that are being spoken throughout the state: Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, I mean, multiple languages, and those are just a few. People go, well, I'm bilingual. I had a guy the other day, Steve, I'm bilingual in Russian. That's probably not, you probably don't want to hire me if I'm bilingual in Russian. Like, first of all, you're bilingual in a second, bilingual means you're 2 languages. You have a second language that you're fluent in. Why would we not want to hire you? I mean, you got to have the good character. That's not going to get you the job by itself, the bilingual, but heck, that's a bonus. I mean, there are some Russian speaking people in our community. I don't know where they are. I mean, I have a good friend of mine is Russian, but you may never run into somebody that's Russian speaking, but why would we say no? I mean, maybe that's a certain skill to have. So don't think any language is a bad thing. Any bilingual or trilingual, other additional language is a good thing. I'm not saying go out and learn Spanish now thinking that's going to guarantee you a job. It won't. You still got to pass the background, the psych, the medical, and have good character traits, but it can't hurt you. So if you are maybe somewhat fluent, or you took some classes, maybe brush up on it. Number 18, you're physically and mentally fit. This is a big challenge in today's world. The term behavioral health, mental health are big issues. I mean, you look at God, just the whole health of the nation, and the whole coronavirus situation is not helping it at all, but it's just one of situations that we are having to deal with right now, and it's showing the true colors of people. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because all of us are wired differently and we have different things that make us tick or set us off. But we need, put it this way, when the bell goes off and Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith is requiring us to help solve their problem on their worst day, because most people don't call 911 unless it's the worst day ever, they need us to be able to help solve their problem. If we're getting sucked into the situation of, oh my God, we're not doing our jobs. I mean, we're not perfect. And I mean, we're human. We have our issues too. I mean, firefighter suicides, law enforcement suicides are up there. So are suicides in general in society. But keep yourself mentally fit as best you can, obviously physically fit as best you can, have your outlets, have a good work-life balance, because those are things we're going to be asking you, because health and wellness and a balance is critical for a public safety career. Because the last thing we want to have you do is we want you to hire you, have a great long career, and then hopefully a nice, long, healthy retirement. But find ways to hopefully keep a balance. Next item, number 19, you're capable of being low maintenance. I'm a fan of low maintenance. Think about it. You get hired. Nobody likes high maintenance people. Maybe some of you have been in a relationship with someone that's high maintenance. It's draining physically and mentally. I mean, again, I get back to health, wellness, balance. We want low maintenance people. Don't be, I mean, it's good to ask questions. Please ask questions. Just don't be so needy about, hey, what are we doing in the, this or that or this or there's a balance. I don't want to discourage you, because again, you got to ask questions to make sure you're on the right page, and you have the expectations of your supervisor. And good supervisors, like captains, will share their expectations with you. So ask questions, because the last thing you want to have happen is something bad on the emergency scenes. Well, you didn't tell me to wear my full PPE when we went out to a fire. Well, I shouldn't have to tell you to wear your full PPE. I mean, be low maintenance. And again, these are things that you can share with the oral board of trying to be low maintenance. Because if you think about it, I shared earlier that most oral boards will have captains that will be supervising you at some point, and captains don't want high maintenance people. We got enough. Every department's got a high maintenance. We love low maintenance. Number 20, as we start winding down, you got to demonstrate a track record of correct decision making. This sort of ties back into being dependable, but correct decision making. Not perfect. You're human. You can talk about your mistakes in the past. Hopefully, time helps heal things and distance helps heal things. But taking accountability, responsibility. But again, you're not perfect, but correct decision-making is key, because that usually comes up in the background of the psych. Number 21, this sort of goes with low maintenance, but you're motivated and you're a self-starter. We don't want to hire a slug. I mean, I know we're going to put you through a recruit academy. You're going to get some training during your probationary period with certain captains, certain crews, but you got to be a self-starter. You can't wait for people to tell you, hey, I need you to clean the toilet today. You got to be that person that's a self-starter, not just during probation, but after probation. And there shouldn't be well, you're on probation, play the probationary game. This should be the real you, the character that we hire from day one to the day you leave us. I mean, number 22, military experience is critical, because we're trying our best. There's a lot more folks that probably have military experience than have mechanical ability experience. And we're trying our best right now to be able to hire people that have military experience, just to be able to help give back. I love that with caller ID. Sorry, potential spam. I think I'm not going to answer that one here. My apologies for that one. Military experience. Most departments, if not every department, every jurisdiction, is trying to give back by, for those that have served their country, served our country, to try to at least help them get back into regular life. And I think that's a good thing. So if you have military experience, it's not one thing by itself that gets you hired. Some departments are not able to give military veteran preference points that we used to be able to give because of the laws, which is sort of, I know, a little bit screwy that we're sort of, not helping the vets out. But you know what? If you have military experience, be able to sell that and talk about that. It's not by itself maybe something that'll get you hired, but again, it's things that you can share in a positive way that ties into a lot of things we've already talked about with life experience, past good track record, and everything else. Now, I wouldn't say join the military just to become a firefighter. Join the military to serve your country for the right reasons. Yes, it can help you in the long run, but just like paramedic school, don't do it just to become a firefighter. Do it because you want to, for the right reasons. Number 23, you demonstrate that you'll be able to put service above self. It comes down to that. Unfortunately, we live in an entitlement society, not generation, but society. And sometimes people forget why they took that oath of office to serve. And I've heard firefighters as I travel the country, well, that building's on fire. I may die if I go in there, or I may get cancer, because firefighters have a higher tendency for getting cancer because of what we're exposed to, even with our full gear on, just because of our job. And it's like, well, yeah, you may get cancer, you may die. I mean, there's a reason that you're getting usually paid, or if you're a volunteer, you're allowed to do the position and you may be getting certain benefits, but there's a reason you're on the job. Because you're willing to take the oath of office to risk your life when appropriate for the right reasons. Service above, self is critical. Number 24, you understand and demonstrate the words hard work, ethics, and integrity. I touched on these, again, tying back to character. So we're looking for people with good character traits. And if you haven't done it by now, Google, when you get off of this webinar, Google character traits or leadership traits. You're not perfect. You're not going to hit everyone. Trust me, nobody hits every one of them. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses, and be prepared for that question on most interviews. But try to get each of these words and see which of them that you really qualify for, and be able to not just say you're a hard worker or that you're ethical or that you have integrity, but be able to give an example, be able to tie it into something you've done maybe when you were at school or maybe when you're on a certain job. Yes, I'm a hard worker because of this. That touches on oral interview that we'll get on in the next few sessions. Don't just tell me you're ethical, tie it into the position and give me an example. So I think there's some keys there, and that gets back to knowing yourself. But that's what we're looking for, people that understand hard work. This is blue collar work. You're going to get dirty and you're going to risk your life. And then number 25, last but not least, you're unique in a positive way. The oral board remembers something great about you. Think about this, whether there's 100, 1,000, how many people the oral board are seeing? The sad part is after the oral board has seen double digits, meaning they've seen 10, 20, 30, 40 people, and now they're 3 days into this, because if you think about it, 30-minute interview, they may be seeing 2 candidates an hour times 8 hours a day. That interview panel may be seeing 15, 16, 17 candidates each day, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. At 1 week, they've seen 60, 70 candidates. And then if they're there for 2 weeks doing an interview, they've seen hundreds of candidates. And the sad part is most of the candidates after the first handful just sort of all run together. They're all boring, unenthusiastic people. Again, no passion, no enthusiasm. They can't talk about themselves in a positive way, not cocky or arrogant, and nothing unique. Again, know yourself inside and out, and you may be able to provide something unique, because at the end of the interviews, it's like the only ones we really remember, there's 100% of the people. Whether the 100% means we interviewed 10, 100, a million, we usually remember the 10% at the top that were the rock stars, the 10% that were unique, that had a good personality that I could work with and that I felt was a good potential person to fit our culture, serve our community, the top 10%. Then we remember the 10% at the bottom that pretty much were boring, unenthusiastic, they couldn't answer questions, they couldn't communicate, and you looked at the panel going, oh my God, they're going to bore the crap out of me. Oh my God, they're the 80% in the middle, they passed, but there was nothing unique about them. So how do you become unique? You know yourself inside and out, and you'll be able to share some of your experiences. So as we end the top 25 reasons, after discussing the previous 25 reasons to hire you as a firefighter, what does the perfect or ideal firefighter candidate look like? I hope you've seen it by now. There is none. It's personality. Just like you, when you look for new friends or interact with people and you meet people for the first time, you're sizing people up. That's what we're doing as well. We're sizing up to see, is there a connection and a long-term potential fit here? There is no perfect candidate, but there is some certain things. So if you take 2 things away from this presentation, please remember the following, as I shared earlier. Please don't just prepare for the test, prepare for the position. Now, I'll be honest. I know people that have been hired as firefighters across the country in all types of departments, all sizes of departments, people that have never even gone to paramedic school, have never even gone to EMT school, never even taken any college, let alone any fire classes, and they got hired. I've known people that were like school teachers, or people that worked at FedEx or UPS or worked at the supermarket. Again, no college, no education. They found a department that didn't require EMT, paramedic, or firefighter 1 or education. They just required 18 years old, high school diploma. And I know people go, how did they get hired? I put myself through 2 years of college. I got my academy, went to paramedic school. I'm a volunteer firefighter. I'm working on the ambulance company. I'm doing all this stuff to prepare myself. How did they get hired working at UPS or FedEx? Well, guess what? 100% of your score in most departments is the oral interview. So obviously they came into that oral interview. They met the minimum qualifications. They came into their interview, connected with that panel, had enough to go to the next level. The chief goes, you know what? This person's got potential. I can put him through a recruit academy and teach him how to be a firefighter, or her. They passed the background, they passed the psych or whatever process after the background or after the chief's interview. They did enough to get to the academy and keep an 80% average in the academy on the written test, their skills. And you know what? We can train them to be a firefighter. Heck, we could probably even put them through paramedic school or EMT school like some departments do. Prepare for the position. And again, it's hiring for character, training for skills. So they sold themselves in that 10, 20, 30-minute interview enough to be able to say, I'm going to take a chance on them. I'll teach them how to throw a ladder, pull some hose. And the second thing, besides preparing for the position, we don't hire resumes, we hire people. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is a lot of candidates focus on the resume, like I was guilty of, versus, you know what, learn to sell myself, learn to connect with the panel, learn to make them want me and take a chance on me. And that's what it comes down to, is taking a chance on you that you'll be a good fit. Now, I'll open it up to some Q&A here shortly here, but just some resources I shared earlier, the two entry-level preparation books, Firefighters Preparation, Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, as well as Reach for the Firefighter Badge, are two separate, different, but complementary books that are available off my website, Code 3 Fire Training, as well as my other one, ChabotFire.com, ebook, digital, or hard copy. I've got those resources there. Even if you don't want to buy the books, that's okay, I'm good with that. The free stuff link on both my websites have a ton of free information for all ranks, fire chief down to firefighter. And then my promotional preparation book, How to Excel at Fire Department Promotional Exams, is for those that are looking to become an engineer, a captain, chief officer. All available off my website, Amazon, iTunes. Also right now, coming later this year, early next year, I'm working on a promotional preparation book, my second one. 101 Nuggets is the work entitled to assist you on your next exam by a major publisher. And then I'm also working on at least one, if not two, leadership books, Courage Under Fire, Leadership for All Ranks. So those are some things right there. My contact information is here. I don't want you just hopefully leaving at this point. You and I may not have ever met before, short of what you're hearing me talk about or seeing me talk about right now. I want to share in the best interest of paying it forward, giving it back, and because I care about the future of the fire service. And it's not just the fire service, it's those that are going to be coming to help me and my loved ones out. So please don't hesitate to reach out. My email address, my cell phone, or on my website. I mean, I may not be able to pick it up if you call right away or return your text or your voicemail or your email, because if I'm at the fire department working, I work a Monday through Friday schedule, that's for work. But night times, weekends, like now, I'm happy to return emails, time permitting, and everything else. It may take a couple days. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn as well too. Like I said, a lot of things that I share that I want you to go down rabbit holes. So that's my stuff right there. That I apologize for going a little bit over the 2 hours I promised you, but heck, I'd stay here all day, and I do have some more time. So I'd like to open up for Q&A. If anybody wants to type in some Q&A stuff right there. For the webinar links, either later on today or tomorrow, once the webinar is processed, I'll share that with everybody as well. And that'll be good for 7 days. Like I said, I'm thinking if it turns out okay, I'll try to post it on YouTube and share the link as well too, so you have an archived resource. So that said, I do hope that you found some value. And again, this is not, you're not going to learn everything in 2 hours, nor if you watch all the webinars that I'm doing. I hope you do sign up for those as well too, because I think there's other information. Or if you visit the website, talk to me on the phone, text with me, email me. I do appreciate that, sincerely. I enjoy hearing from people, even if you just say, hey, Steve, you never met me before. 5 years from now, 2 years from now, I got hired with whatever fire department. Thanks for your help. Hey, cool. That stuff like that makes my day, because I enjoy being able to do that. And I hope you do the same. So thank you for the gift of your time. I've had a blast. And like I said, I'll open up for Q&A right now as well too. So Pete here says he's 16, lives locally here. He wants to suggest dual enrollment classes for EMS and fire technology at Los Pasillos, which is a college outside Livermore, about 45 minutes away, but was waitlisted. Yeah, a lot of colleges sometimes get waitlisted. It's very ebb and flow when it comes to hiring. I mean, when I was testing, as I mentioned, there was a lot of competition. Then there was not a lot of competition, but then we had from 08 till about 2011, the economic downturn. There was a lot of competition because people were out of work. We were not seeing a lot of applicants in the last handful of years, not like the thousands we used to see. It was more the hundreds, because there was a lot of good jobs, especially in the Silicon Valley here. Well, now with COVID-19 hitting us, and this is going to affect pretty much every city's budget in some capacity. I mean, I don't want to be, I'm not going to sell you Skittles and rainbows. This is going to be devastating to a lot of city budgets. I mean, some cities are going to maybe have to lay off firefighters, shut down firehouses, and hold off hiring. But that doesn't mean that departments don't, some people, they still have to retire people, and people are still retiring, still have to replace people that are getting promoted. There's jobs out there. It just may mean you have to try harder. And you maybe have more competition, which means competition's not bad. It's just you got to be on your A game for selling yourself. As for suggestions and advice, on how to get involved more earlier at 16 years old in high school. Here's the thing, at 16, you don't have a lot of options because usually you can't be a volunteer firefighter in most communities. You may be able to be an explorer firefighter, but not every department has explorer posts. So if you can't find an explorer post that's in your area, you know, maybe there's another explorer post. I didn't live in Alameda. I lived in San Leandro growing up, a couple cities away, but I drove to Alameda. I mean, it was a way to get my foot in the door. So you may not get opportunities like that, but don't think it's all fire. You can be volunteering your butt off as a 16-year-old, volunteering for your church, for your school, for your wherever. And people go, well, I don't go to church. I don't care. Find somewhere else. There is no perfect volunteer experience. To me, the best volunteer experience is any volunteer experience, and not just 8 hours today and nothing for 8 months. Think about that, 8 hours today and nothing for 8 months versus 1 hour a day or 1 hour a month. Let's think of it that way. You may not be able to do 8 hours one day a month. Let's say you do 1 hour a month. Well, 1 hour a month times 8 months is now 8 hours. That's not a lot of hours, but after 12 months, 16 months, it adds up. You can find time if you make it. So I encourage you to start volunteering your time, doing your homework, doing your research. If you can get obviously into EMT, great. Rarely do people get hired at 18, 19 years old, but it happens. It does happen. What else? Any other questions and answers out there? Like I said, more than happy to stay on for a little bit. Even if you don't think of anything, feel free to email me later on. I think the benefit now is that other people can maybe hear, because what you're thinking is probably going to benefit somebody else. The dumb question you have is probably not as dumb as you think. It's someone else is probably just too nervous or too shy to ask it. But again, put it in the back burner and ask me on one of the next webinars on next Saturday, the Saturday after that, and then June 20th. Well, let me see here. So let's see. One person here graduated, was enrolled in ROP, and was student of Captain John Peters. I'm enrolled at Chabot. What fire class should I take for the fall? May I email you for further contact? You can always email me, but if you're going to Chabot, just go to chabotfire.com, our college website, which is also accessed off Code 3 Fire, but chabotfire.com on the main page, and this is for everybody, chabotfire.com, which is the college website. There's a whole roadmap on the front there of what to do, how to get into Chabot. Even if you live in New York and you're not going to Chabot, that's fine. The roadmap is still applicable. It's just different college, meaning find a college in your area. There's also a link, so you want to become a firefighter, that I put together like a couple of year plan of a roadmap of go to a college, any college, start volunteering, find your EMT, visit firehouses. So you want to become a firefighter off of chabotfire.com is another great resource as well to give you some ideas and suggestions, especially at Chabot there. Somebody else said, hello, you mentioned applying anywhere we are qualified for, even if we're not interested in that department. How would you recommend going about answering the question, why would you want to work for that department, even if you don't want to work there? Yeah, oftentimes there is not a lot of information on departments' websites beyond logistics, statistics, service area. So you want to find out how to answer a good question. Yeah, there's a lot of department websites that suck, and you can't get any information off of them. So I get that. That's why it's good to at least visit a firehouse. You got to visit firehouses. And even if you don't live there, call the department on the phone, see if you can find a firehouse number to talk to somebody. We had people in our last testing process that were calling from Texas. And I know a guy that we hired. He lived in Texas, but he called up and he was getting, crews are more than happy to talk with you if you connect well with them on the phone and you seem to have good potential for them. So as for answering that question of why you want to work for a department you don't really want to work at, try to have a sincere answer. I mean, because obviously if you're going to come in there negatively and really not going to give your A game, don't waste your time, don't waste their time. But try to maybe find some good reason why you'd want to work for that department. Now, the good news is a lot of departments don't ask the question, why do you want to work here? So a lot of departments won't even ask why you want to work there. So you may not even have that issue. But if you do, and you don't want to work there, you better have an answer that's somewhat sincere so you don't tank yourself. Because it's, again, you want to get through the oral interview process, so hopefully it leads to a chief's interview, a background, because that's good experience to go through those. Hell, plus it may be a job, and plus you may actually find out you like there. And even if you don't want to work for that department, get in, get hired, get on the probationary period, go somewhere else. Because once you're on the job, it's easier probably getting another job because you've already proven that you can go through a background, a psych, and a medical process, and maybe even probation, because a department took a chance on you and they liked you. So maybe that's one option as well too. But most departments don't usually ask that question, but be prepared. So All right, that seems to be about pretty much most of it right now, but I'm going to turn the recording off here shortly, and I'll stay on for a little bit too if anyone has any questions or wants to hold on before I see people log off. But I really, again, thank you for the gift of your time. It's been a pleasure to be able to do this. Hopefully we'll see you on future webinars, or we'll be able to interact in some capacity in the future. Again, I'm a resource. Just because I'm a chief, I put my pants on the same way you do. I started out just like all you do. You've got to be able to be comfortable with talking to hopefully chiefs. And again, I'm human just like everybody else is, and I want to see people succeed. So have a good, safe rest of Memorial Day weekend. Please survive these interesting times as best you can. And, try to take things for the better, because again, if you have a positive outlook as positive part of your character, it's going to go a long way versus someone that's got a negative attitude. So last question here. Somebody goes, is all fire classes at Chabot on during the pandemic, or will they be postponed, canceled? I don't have that answer. The most up-to-date information of the college is the college website, which probably changes daily because the answer is not known daily. And it's not meant to be wishy-washy, but things change on a daily basis. California State University system is saying online for the fall. Chabot is still trying for in-person classes with social distancing and whatever else. Again, I don't know, and nobody has a good answer in all honesty. Really, this is almost a week by week, month by month. So the best thing I could do is sign up for classes and see what happens. Worst comes to worst, drop out. So, all right, everybody, again, thank you very much, and have a great day. We'll see you at some point, hopefully in the future.